fourth.
Wow.
Number 13.
Holy shnikes.
The winner of the 2025 NHL Draft Lottery and the first overall selection in the 2025 Upper Deck NHL Draft belongs to the New York Islanders.
The New York Islanders have won the NHL Draft Lottery. And that look from Kenny says it all. We have the lucky sweaters behind him.
Welcome back, everybody, and we're ready for an epic week of NHL coverage. So much so, we had to bring in the boys from Ranger Central down below. I, of course, am your host, Mark Williams, ready to toss some layups to these guys whenever they're ready for it. Joined by the host of the Final Buzzer, Mr. John Falkowski.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one, ladies and gents. So strap in. I put in a lot of work for this. We've all done a lot of work, and definitely support the guys from Ranger Central here that are here with us. Like, share, and subscribe to them as well. But this is going to be one of the more fun streams, I think, that we've done. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. So without further ado, let's introduce our guests. First, from Ranger Central, Maddie.
Yeah, what is going on, everybody? Yeah, it was Phil definitely did his draft rankings the right way because he actually spread out all the work. Unlike me and Evan, we were up till 3 a.m. yesterday grinding out videos on these prospects. So I probably won't have the best information on all these guys, but I'm gonna try to put the best mock draft I will be able to possible. But yeah, it's great to be here. And
of course, Evan from Ranger Central.
Yeah, definitely excited for the me bounds, like Dave is saying in the chat. But yeah, late night homework assignment submission here. I'm excited for this. This is the best part of the offseason, draft time, free agency shortly after. So I'm ready to go. And then we got trades today too.
So we got NHL coverage D and trade coverage D to go along with this right now. Guys,
D is not here.
He's absent. We have absent D.
Absent D.
Yeah. Senor D is not here today.
Yeah, Senor D no está aquí.
The D is always with us, but in spirit.
Guys, we are going to be doing our NHL mock draft in just a few minutes. We got a couple topics that we have to discuss. First off, we have breaking news on a trade that happened literally minutes before we were able to get on. The Philadelphia Flyers acquired Trevor Zegras from the Anaheim Ducks for Ryan Poehling and a 4th-round pick. Evan, let's start with you on this one. He was long a target for Ranger fans to be looking at. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like the deal for both sides because I've been vocal about how I'm not a Zegras guy and everything. But I think in Philly, it at least makes some sense for them to take a flyer on him. And I'm not making a corny pun there, I promise. But for how low they were able to buy on him, I think it's worth the risk there, especially since they have the cap flexibility to take him on. Reunite him with Drysdale, one of his best friends as well, which is a Rangers type thing. The funniest part to me is still that they moved him after they got Chris Kreider, which that was like a whole thing that was hyped up that those two would play together. But either way, I think it's a good trade for Anaheim because they get out of that contract. And on top of that, they also, they like I said, clear up cap space with Zegras. They don't have to deal with the headache that he's kind of been. And now Zegras gets a second opportunity elsewhere. I wish it was with John Tortorella there because that would have been just a funny story there. But I think it's just a good deal overall for both sides.
Maddie, what do you think about this deal? Is it going to be something that's going to light a fire into Zegras?
I mean, for his sake, you hope so. I mean, this was a guy that was, highly touted coming out of the draft and really hasn't taken off. I mean, he had a solid rookie season. Second season, he was decent, but really these last couple seasons, he hasn't had it. And I'm not sure what it is, if he's not, too interested, if it's just he's not as good as what he was hyped up to be. But listen, some guys, and even though I didn't want him here as a Ranger just because I don't like his play style personally, I don't think, he's the right guy to win in a playoff environment to say. But listen, he might be one of those guys where he needs a change of scenery. And look, it's a decent deal for both sides because, for Zegras, he gets a new opportunity to, explore himself and, to be in a new environment. So hopefully for him, that wakes him up. For Anaheim, look, it's a solid deal for them. Obviously, you get a couple picks here and you get Ryan Poehling, who, it's a decent depth center. And for them, they're a young team. They need a bit of, a veteran presence, especially in the bottom part of that lineup. So, it's a solid deal for them. The only thing I worry about with Zegras going to Philly is that Rick Tocchet usually has squabbles with young guys like that, and particularly guys that really don't play that grind out hockey. So I'm interested to see how that type of dynamic is going to work out. But hopefully for Zegras, and hopefully not too much, because at the end of the day, the Rangers and Flyers are rivals and division rivals. But hopefully for his sake, he gets his career back on track.
Yeah, we have to add in that there was a 2025 second round pick, and the fourth rounder was 2026. Phil had to correct me on that one. I did not see that when initially I put that in. But Phil, you look at Trevor Zegras, who had a great work in the World Junior tournaments. Good first season with Anaheim, good first couple seasons, and then kind of, I think he's fallen in love with celebrity. Is this a trade that's going to wake him up, or is it going to be like JT Miller, where it might take one more trade to wake this guy up?
Well, I don't know. I mean, every player is different from the next. I mean, JT Miller himself said that he had to take his offseason regimens more, seriously, and that's where, that second trade kind of woke him up to that. I think that Trevor Zegras and Pat Verbeek have kind of been at odds for like the last 3 years or so, ever since Verbeek really tried to play hardball with him. When Verbeek came in, Verbeek played a certain way, and obviously, Mark, you watched him in New York, you watched him in Jersey, you watched him in Dallas as well. It was on probably a little longer than I have, but he played a certain style of hockey, and that's the way that he wants Anaheim to play. And Zegras does not fit that bill, like Matt was saying. So there may be a clash between him and Tocchet. But the one thing I will say, even though I think that there is the possibility of that, I think Tocchet is a little less explosive of a personality than someone like John Tortorella, who that could be a train wreck waiting to happen. And, thankfully Tocchet's the guy there for him, because I think Tocchet is the guy that could get that out of Zegras and maybe, kind of get him back on track to where he wants to go. But I do think that the rift between Zegras and Verbeek is kind of what's caused him to fall off a little bit. He's also had some health issues, missed some time in the last few years. So this is somebody that I think could really benefit from a change of scenery. Ryan Poehling, I like Ryan Poehling as a bottom six player. He's a player that a lot of teams would love to have in their bottom six. But if he's the main point of the return, that you're selling kind of low on Zegras, which you kind of had to. Zegras easy to play against. Yeah, you could say that. I mean, maybe Rick Tocchet can change that for him and for the Flyers, but I think that with a change of scenery, there is a possibility that he can take the next step in his career. You hope it's not at the Rangers' expense, obviously, or the Islanders' expense if you're an Islander fan. But this is somebody who needed it. So let's see what happens going forward. I don't think the Flyers are going to flip him or anything like that. I think he's there to stay for at least a little bit. But good for them. Picking up a center, they needed center depth. Does he project more as a winger going forward? Maybe, but he plays center as far as we know as it is. But good for them. They needed the forward depth. They needed some skill up front. I think that this was a good move for them.
I think it's a great move. It's gonna be their alternative because they were having some rumors about Marco Rossi, so maybe that price tag is just a little bit too high. Zegras, buy low, sell high. Buy low and then get rewards later, possibly. I actually forgot the expression as I started saying
low risk, high reward.
Low risk, high reward. Thank you. Yeah. But this is somebody that, again, you've seen what he can actually be at his best. Now just go out and do it. And I think he's just too fixated on the Michigan pass, the Michigan play that he did, the highlight reel stuff. No, sometimes just being in the NHL is just greasy goals, doing things other players won't do, working hard. That's what it is. So maybe it's something that might wake him up because, after all, he could play to his potential. Who knows where it could be? Maybe next year we're talking about him on Team USA, which is a team all four of us would definitely root for. One last thing before we start the mock draft, everybody. Got a report on this tweet, and I got 3 guys. I have to talk about this with them. It was last year that several Rangers met at Artemi Panarin's house a couple weeks before training camp to bid Barclay Goodrow a farewell before he left for San Jose. At the gathering, plenty of players openly expressed their resentment for Chris Drury and his handling of the Goodrow and Trouba situations. Matt, I'll start with you on this one. This is just another nail in the coffin of this is the most unprofessional group of players that were put together, right?
I mean, I can't really say that I'm shocked because, we've all kind of pointed to this and say, like, this is who they are as a group. And I mean, like I said, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because, listen, at the end of the day, I'm all for having close relationships with your teammates because at the end of the day, like, when you're a team, you're supposed to be a tight-knit group. You're supposed to be a family. I don't have any type of problem with that. And over the course of, a career, you're going to develop close relationships with guys. My problem is that you're bitching and moaning because there's repercussions for failure. And at the end of the day, you're a professional athlete. You're making a lot of money. You're being paid a lot of money to play a game at the end of the day. And when you're a professional athlete and when you play for a team, at the end of the day, there's only one goal, and that's to win a championship, and that's to bring a cup home back to your team. And they didn't do that. They failed last year. And usually when you fail, there's repercussions and there's consequences. And I'm sorry, if you're a professional athlete and you can't handle that there needs to be consequences and that there needs to be changes to rosters when you come up short and don't complete your ultimate goal, then you're not fit enough to be a professional athlete. Like, that's just how it is. Like I said, listen, I don't have any problem with these guys having close relationships with guys like Goodrow and Trouba. That's fine. But as I said, there's consequences for failure. They came up short. They got dominated in the conference final, and there had to be changes. And look, both Trouba and Goodrow didn't die. They're still alive. They're still playing this league. They have phones, right? You could pick up your phone. You could call these guys. You could text them. So I just, like I said, I'm not shocked that this is how they handle it. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing. And I mean, these guys just need to be moved off the team as quickly as possible. And, a whole just dynamic change in this core is much needed.
And by the way, NWare for Life is saying it right here. Mika was still complaining about it at the end of the season. And Evan, it was just apparent they never wanted to get over this.
Yeah, the fact that, especially Mika's case, he was saying it's the hardest thing that he's dealt with in his career, considering he's dealt with like concussions and all these other injuries before. Really? This is the most difficult thing that you're dealing with throughout your entire career? It's just complete and utterly ridiculous. I'm not surprised considering going into the year, you have Trouba saying the last dance type comment thing, which kind of set the tone early that this team was going to just rebel and not give it their all. I think they kind of benefited off a soft schedule at the start of last season, which kind of made it seem like, all right, they're not quitting. Like it kind of glossed over the fact that deep down, they didn't want to play here. They were quitting and rebelling against the team. The other problem I have with the thing that Matt was saying is this is a salary cap based league. So moves are going to be made accordingly to that. If you really want to be with your best friends and stay together, then take discounts. Then why didn't you take discounts to play here? That's the other problem that I have there, because you have a fourth liner, like Is This Better was saying. They got rid of one of the statistically worst players in Barclay Goodrow, and they're complaining because, we're trying to make the team better. Like that's the thing that Drury, yes, he does not make the right moves, and I'm very vocal about being against Drury. But at the end of the day, he's got to do what's best for the team. And that's what he was doing by getting rid of Barclay Goodrow, getting rid of Jacob Trouba. And the fact that these guys can't be professionals when there are people in the real world that have to go on business trips and go months without seeing their significant others, without seeing their families. They don't complain. They do their job because they can just make a phone call. If you want to be with your friends, spend time with them in the off season. Do that gathering at Panarin's house over the summer. Do an entire weekend, whatever you want to do. You got all this money. You could fly across the country whenever you want to see each other. It's just complete and utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, Phil, what's your reaction to this? Because the optics of this, it just doesn't look good.
When you ask for a contract, like just like with like us, with like any job that you get, like when you get hired, you have to live up to a standard. You have to perform to a certain standard. And the guys that are being mentioned here, like Barclay Goodrow and Jacob Trouba, they asked for contracts that they could not live up to. And they knew they couldn't live up to these contracts. And then finally, when they're held accountable for it, there's a problem. That's to me is the biggest thing, and that pisses me off the most. So you know that you were getting more than you were worth. You know that you were getting all this extra money that you probably shouldn't have been getting. And then when you get called out for it, then it's a problem. So why is it a problem then, but it's not a problem when you're getting all that extra money that you really didn't deserve? And then for the other players on the team to know this, because they all know what they're earning. It's not like you can't look it up. It's public record. For them to support that, and then to really kind of quit on the team for making moves to try to make the team better and to get to the goal, it's probably the worst group of collective players that I've ever seen, ever, in any sport. I would rather watch an island of misfit toys struggle to keep up with good teams than watch a bunch of entitled losers sit there and complain because two guys that weren't pulling their own weight got moved. Chris Drury handled everything wrong. Well, Jacob Trouba shouldn't have leaked out that, he wouldn't report to teams that weren't on his no trade list because he didn't have full no trade protection and no move protection anymore. And Barclay Goodrow should have just accepted a trade because they knew that he wanted out. And he knew that there was the possibility that he was going to get waived. So he should have accepted a trade to go where he wanted to go, and he would have been okay. And instead, he gets waived, and that's it. So, at the end of the day, this is a business. You have to do what you have to do to make the team better, and the goal is to win the Stanley Cup. And their reaction to moan and cry about this is just unacceptable by any means. By any means, it is unacceptable. And you can't have it. So all these guys that were a part of this, they have to go. Listen, I'm on board with this. I think no movement clauses are complete bullshit. I get rid of them. I can't stand it. It basically gives somebody protection against not performing up to their contract. And you know what? You could say that about the NFL. Oh, well, it's kind of cutthroat in the NFL. Well, no, the NFL holds players accountable for, getting the contracts that they do. They have certain guaranteed money, which whether they get released or whatever, they still get. The NHL has full guaranteed contracts. Full. Like, you're guaranteed it unless you get bought out. Even if you get sent down, you don't have trade protection. You get sent down to the minors, if you're on a one-way contract, you're still getting that NHL salary. So these are guaranteed contracts. God forbid the GM try to make the team any better. And that's really what it comes down to. These guys complained about it, and you got to move on from them. So good on them to get rid of the guys that they've gotten rid of already. I hope there's more.
The thing about it that I hate even more is that these guys are acting like they actually won something. They actually won something in this league.
One
I'm sorry,
thing,
but compare this situation to the Tampa Bay Lightning. After they lost the final in 2022 to Colorado, Julian Breezeball had to make a tough decision. He had to move Ryan McDonough for salary purpose reasons. And he went to Ryan McDonough, a guy that just won back-to-back cups, by the way, probably one of the better defensemen that we've seen recently over the last couple of years. And he said, look, you're either going to accept the trade or you're going to go on waivers. This is how it is. They had the discussion. He eventually said, okay, fine, I'll get traded. Go to last offseason. They look at how quickly they moved on from Steven Stamkos, a guy, by the way, that's going to go into the Hockey Hall of Fame, going to get his number retired by the Tampa Bay Lightning, arguably the best player in Tampa Bay Lightning franchise history, and they treated him like, go away. We don't need you anymore. I'm sorry. Did I see Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, Victor Hedman, Andrei Vasilevsky have a freaking team meeting at one of their houses and say, oh, I can't believe this is how Julian Breezeball is treating us. He doesn't realize we won back-to-back cups, right? No, they're professional about it. They said, listen, it is what it is. It's a business. Change needs to be made to the roster, and we moved on, which is how you should be as a professional athlete and a professional team. But I guess it's different over here for these guys, even though, like I said, they've won nothing in their careers.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's part of the problem. And part of the problem is they've won nothing. And it's something that they needed to understand. You have to improve the team. Look, the Detroit Red Wings were the best team in NHL history in 95, 96. And they looked at Paul Coffey, who was fresh recently off of a Norris Trophy season, and said, you got to go, buddy. And we're going to bring in Brendan Shanahan for you. Did they quit? Did they turn around and go, oh, no, let's all shut up? No. And they could have held this meeting at Panarin's house in May because Panarin didn't show up in the playoffs. Even after all the defending I've done for him, look, I got to also admit the fact he scored one meaningless goal with, 45 seconds remaining in Game 6 of the conference finals. After Game 3 of the Carolina series, he was gone as it was anyway. So this is one of those things, looking at the New York Rangers, all these guys are going, well, we earned this right to be all pissy. No, you didn't. And Mika Zibanejad, you went through one of the worst statistical first halves you ever had. You lost your position as a number one center, and you're talking about Barclay Goodrow. I don't know what I'm going to do without the fourth line player on my team. We all got friends. We all got people that we worked with that either got fired or moved on to better jobs. Get the hell over yourself. As much as I want to say you're like a family, sort of like the kids' table, sitting there at family gatherings, if you're sitting there and you're joking around with everybody, time to get real when you go to the adults. And most of the time when people go to the adults table, it's because somebody in the family is gone. So it's never really for good reasons. Just wake up. Remember your professional athletes. Wayne Gretzky got traded. Anybody could get traded. So get over yourselves. And certainly don't quit on your team, because the 88, 89 Oilers didn't quit, even though I believe they lost to the Kings in the playoffs that year. And then the year after that, they won the Stanley Cup because they wanted to prove they could do it without Gretz. Just all this. I'm more fired up after having a career. Well, it wasn't a career night. If you actually, there was several other better games that I've had. I never even saw the comment.
Going to assist for Mark Williams last night.
Yeah.
Mark was last night.
It was a good night, especially for a 47-year-old old man. So, guys, again, we got a lot of draft coverage coming up this week. We got Thomas Hickey coming on this week. Potentially somebody who's in the NHL draft will potentially be joining us. Don't want to give any names away. And also, we're gonna be covering this in every way, shape, or form. Wednesday on our weekly show, and of course, right now with the boys from Ranger Central. So let's get the 2025 draft overview. Philk, all the projections in this, I just want to note for everybody, barring any trades, all the teams keep their picks. If you want to note that the New York Rangers, whoever ends up with that pick could end up going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. If you want to give 2 picks for that, I guess, an alternative. But let's get started. Philk, the New York Islanders will draft.
I'm gonna go with Matthew Schaefer. You got to keep it simple. This guy is probably the best player in the draft, the most polished player in the draft. He's the youngest in the class. He misses the 2026 draft only by 10 days. He might be the best skater in the entire class. His speed's incredible. His skating is so fluid. His mechanics are great. He's very good at getting the puck to the net from the point. Walking the line is something he's great at as well. He can make moves and beat you there. Great vision, playmaking skill, and hockey IQ. Good puck management. Great decision-making without the puck as well. And he controls the gap very well. If you want some cons on him, things where he needs to improve, he's very lanky and thin right now. He's going to need to bulk up, which I think he will. I think once he bulks up to maybe 210, something like that, I think that might end up being his final playing weight. If he's maybe a 220, even better. But he definitely needs to add some muscle. His shooting needs to improve. He doesn't have a big, heavy shot. You also spelled Schaefer wrong. There's a C in there, Mark. Yeah. So
for one pick in and a
pick in and already a typo. Oh boy.
We'll talk about. We're gonna thank you, Tom, but we're gonna talk about that as well. So it looks like they might be keeping that if that's true. Maybe it doesn't happen and they end up moving it. But again, they have to have that in 48 hours before the draft. So we'll find out by Wednesday whether or not they're keeping it or they're sending it to Pittsburgh. But I love Schaefer as a player. There's another defenseman that I think is close to him, and he's been rising in the rankings. But we'll talk about him a little bit later. But I think Schaefer is by far the most polished defenseman in the class. I think he's the closest to NHL ready. I don't think he'll be playing this year, though. I think this is going to be the first time since 2006 with Eric Johnson where you didn't see a number one overall pick play in the NHL right away. And possibly, actually, no, Jordan Stahl did play in 2006, 2007.
Didn't Owen Power, he didn't play his first year either?
He came late, I think, that year.
Late.
Okay, he came late.
But yeah, I do think Matthew Schaefer doesn't play this year with the Islanders. I think because of the fact that he missed time, I think it's going to spell him playing either in junior or maybe there'll be talks of NCAA. Who knows? But I don't think he's playing in the NHL this upcoming year. But again, guy that's very, very close to being NHL ready. I think you'll see him not this upcoming season, but the next season.
All right. So going number 2 to the San Jose Sharks, Matt, who are you taking?
Yeah, I think this one it's a fairly easy layup by design, as one would say.
Yeah.
It's Michael Misa. Listen, this would be a fantastic pickup for the San Jose Sharks. Because, I mean, you already have Mac and Celebrini as your number one center. Obviously, you have Will Smith there, too, who could also play center, but he's probably going to end up playing on the wing for the most part in his career, as long as he stays with the Sharks. But, yeah, Michael, I mean, the Sharks are building up a really good young core right now. And if you add Michael Misa to that young core, I mean, it's only going to get better. Because the one thing that I really love about Michael Misa and the one thing that I really love about, number one centers in reality in this league is their two-way game. And Michael Misa is a very good two-way player. He's a very good skater, got a decent shot, very good playmaker as well. I mean, the guy for me, he's an all-around guy. And if this was any other year and Schaefer wasn't available, Misa would probably be the consensus number one pick for me. But with Schaefer being number one and the fact that he looks as good as he is right now and the Islanders needing a number one defenseman as well, since they'll probably take him as well. So, yeah, Michael Misa is the number 2 pick for me. It's fairly easy.
Oh, yeah, and I forgot to mention we'll be using this graphic all week, especially to say that the pick is in. So, Evan, you'll be the first one to be using this graphic. The pick is in. Who you got number 3?
This is where it gets a little bit tougher, and I could see why there's rumors of Chicago potentially trading down from the spot, just because once you get through Schaefer and Misa, which I have those two, I have Misa higher than Schaefer on my board, but I think Schaefer goes one. You could see why because of the huge drop off after. I'm gonna go with Frondell here though for Chicago. I just think that he fits kind of what Chicago needs, which is more of a center that plays a little bit more of a responsible game versus what they already have with Connor Bedard. I think ideally you put him in the middle and then you move Bedard over to the wing. His size, love that because it helps him protect the puck. He's responsible in his own end. Like I said, the problem is that he does need to improve a little bit on his skating. He's not the best skater, which does hurt him a bit in transition, but playing with Connor Bedard could absolutely help that. I'd like to see him be a little bit more physical with the size that he is. I have him 7th on my board personally, just in terms of favorites, but I think he is going to go in the top 5, no doubt. And I think Chicago would benefit well just as a fit having him there.
All right. Now looking at number 4, this is a pick that looks like it's in play. Utah has constantly talked about this, but Philk, what would Utah take if they kept the pick?
Well, this is what I would be doing. I would go with I'm going to go with James Higgins there. I know a lot of people talk about Caleb Denoyer. I've heard Porter Martone's name there. I do think they can use help at center. And you can't go wrong with Higgins or Martone there. I think personally, like, this is what I would do. I think they end up taking Martone there. I think Martone checks all the boxes for what they need. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. Personally, I would take Higgins. I think I value center over wing, and I think Higgins is going to be a very good player at the NHL level. I think this is an 80-plus point player at the NHL level. I think he's a first-line center. I don't know if he's a true franchise guy. You could probably build around him, so maybe you would say, franchise guy. But, yeah, having Cooley and Higgins as your top 2 centers for the next, 10 to 15 years, that would be something special for them. Higgins is an incredible playmaker. He's got a great motor, and his compete level is very good. He's not overly physical, but he's not afraid to get dirty when he absolutely has to. I think that the shooting needs improvement. He's going to have to bulk up a little more and add a little muscle, even though I know that he's closer to like 190 now. So he's not like Jack Hughes small, which is good. His edge work and his skating are phenomenal. I think he's one of the top 5 best skaters in this class in terms of just overall in general, including defensemen. But I think there is room to grow. The shooting, like I said, is the one thing that I think that needs to improve. But I think that's going to improve as he adds mass and adds muscle. The technique is good shooting-wise. It's not like his technique is bad. I just think that the shot will improve when he adds the strength. He's a better defensive player than people give credit for. James Higgins is the player I've watched the absolute most of this year because I follow BC. BC is one of the 2 teams I follow like big time in college. The other is North Dakota. Higgins, for me, is a weird case because he didn't have the chemistry with Perreault and Leonard that I thought he would have had, but he played better with Teddy Stiga. I guess it's play styles. Those guys like to play a little more cycle off the rush. I think Higgins is a little more of an off the rush player, likes to play at a higher speed. Perreault and Leonard slow the play down a little more. And I think getting used to Higgins after having Will Smith with them for like the last 2 to 3 years was definitely a little bit of an adjustment. So I do think Higgins is going to be a number 1 center in this league, unless he goes to Utah. And then Logan Cooley is their number one center, but that could be a 1A, 1B situation like Crosby and Malkin in Pittsburgh for all those years. Like, maybe one of them goes down and then the other one steps up and he just puts up monster numbers for all we know. But I like Higgins at 4 to Utah.
All right. 5 to the Nashville Predators. Matt, who do you got?
I have Caleb Denoyer. I think for me, I think Denoyer is a solid pick, but I do have my own concerns with him. I think the upside that I do like with him, he's a very good playmaker, decent skater. He's a very good passer. The concerns that I do have from watching his game clips from last night and from yesterday is he gets muscled very easy off the puck. He's not a physical player at all. So going forward, when he does get into this league, he for sure is going to have to bulk up. He's going to have to, get more physical with his game. And the other thing I would say that I think he needs to prove on a little bit his defensive game as well, because from watching the clips, he does tend to cheat a little bit more for offense. Maybe that is just that the league that he plays in and he feels comfortable that he can do that and get away with it. But in this league, in the NHL, you're going to have to play more of a defensive safe game, especially as a center. So, yeah, like I said, I do like Denoyer, but I do have my own concerns with him as well. So, yeah, I have him going at 5.
All right. To the Philadelphia Flyers, Evan, who do you got going at 6?
I got to go Porter Martone just solely based off the ceiling at this point because he has great playmaking. He's someone that does get to the net. He has a good shot that you wish he used more. You can't deny that the ceiling is there. I did have concerns a bit with the fact that he might be a little bit of a power play merchant because he had, I think, 29 of his points on the power play this past year, which does worry me because when you factor that in, he's a little bit closer to a point per game at 5v5 when you dock those points down. And the other problem I have is a lot of his play came off of the rush and the rush only. I'd like to see him be a little bit better off the cycle offensively and start to move the puck a little bit more, get in on the forecheck. But overall, I mean, the ceiling is really high with Porter Martone, where if he irons those things out, you're talking about a future top-line winger for sure.
All right. By the way, thanks to 400 of you that are watching right now. And we got more mock draft picks coming with the Boston Bruins. Phil, who are they taking?
With who's left right now, there's 2 guys that I'm kind of forced to pick between. I'm going to go with Jake O'Brien here, only because I think the offensive ceiling is higher than Brady Martin. Brady Martin was the other one I was looking at. I like Brady Martin, but there are definitely some things that, and I'll go over, or if I get him, that is, if I get to pick him, I'll explain it. But Jake O'Brien, for me, is a fast riser. He will be going at 7 to Boston here, and they need center depth badly. And Jake O'Brien had 98 points in 66 games with Brantford this year. I really like the player because I think there's a lot of room for growth. I think the skating needs improvement. He can generate speed off of his crossovers, and he's kind of reliant on that to generate speed. So I worry about his straight line speed. I don't think it's anything that's not fixable or correctable by any means, but right now he's just a little too reliant on his crossovers to generate speed. So he doesn't really have like that top end high speed, that separation speed that would make him, a real elite player. But what I do love about him is he's got a high hockey IQ level, like really, really high. It's one of the highest in the draft, if you ask me. I love the hands. He can absolutely embarrass you with his hands. Absolutely embarrass you with them. He's one of the younger players in this draft. His shooting's improved year over year. Brantford's power play ran through him. So you were talking about power play merchants before. Jake O'Brien, the one concern I would have is he a power play specialist? That's really one of the big things. He had more points on the power play than an even strength this year. The other thing is that he might need to manage the puck a little better. He sometimes plays a little too much hero hockey, as it's sometimes called, where he tries to do a little too much one-on-one or go one against like 3 or 4. Like I think that needs to stop, and I think that'll be something that'll be corrected by the coaching staff at the next level. So, but I just think that there's a ton of talent here. He's a good character player. He has a pretty decent motor. It's not as high as some of the other guys in the draft, but it's good. The compete level is good. I like him, as I really do like him as a player. If he was available 12, I would absolutely want the Rangers to take him if he was available. So this is going to be a really good player for Boston. I think he gives them a legitimate top 6 center in the future.
Matt, who do the Seattle Kraken take at number 8?
There's a couple guys I'm debating on with this pick, but I think the better player in the higher ceiling, so I'm going to go Brady Martin with this pick. Looking at Brady Martin's like his stats and overall his play stuff from the videos I was watching yesterday, he's a very good player. He's a heavy hitter, very good skater as well. I mean, he loves to get on the forecheck. He loves to create havoc, especially down below the goal line. Has a very decent shot as well. He's just an overall, like I said, solid guy and probably a very good, solid second line player in the future, especially in this league. The only couple concerns that I do have is I think his playmaking could maybe improve a little bit. But I mean, like, that's not really much, and there's not really much else I have that's a concern about him. I mean, there are also the rumors that he could potentially even shoot up to 4 if Utah wants to take him. But I think Brady Martin, if he goes to 8 to Seattle, I think that's a very solid pick for them at 8.
All right. So Seattle gets Brady Martin at 8. Evan, who's going number 9 to the Buffalo Sabres?
This is so tricky because I'm really having a tough time deciding if they're going to go with a forward or a right shot defenseman, just because of the fact that it's been such a need for them. I'm going to go more BPA though and go with Victor Eklund, just because of the fact that I think that he would really benefit Buffalo on the wing, especially if they lose a guy like Peterka this offseason, and kind of fill that void down the road, because he does play a really quick game. Despite being 5'11", he's actually a pretty good forechecker. He needs to put on a little bit more muscle because he does get knocked off the puck, and it might elevate his forechecking game a little bit more. But overall, I mean, the guy wins board battles despite being a smaller forward, which is what really impressed me. His tenacity is unreal. His compete level is always there. And I do think he's one of the most balanced players in the draft as well, which gives him some good upside. The problems that I had was in transition, he wasn't the best player at points. He definitely thrives more on the chip and chase game, working below the goal line type thing. And there were times where his shot selection was a little bit questionable and he was too trigger happy looking off teammates. I'd like to see the playmaking maybe slightly improve there, but I still think that he has really one of the highest upsides out of any of these players offensively. So I like the fit there.
All right. Then in that case, Phil, the Anaheim Ducks, who are they going to take?
This is a tough one for me. They can afford to take a swing on a player here. I really think there's a couple of players that I really, really like here. I wonder if they go forward or D-men. I mean, the emergence of Jackson Lacombe and Pavel Mintyukov, it gives them 2 solid defensemen, but I mean, I think they could still use defensive depth at this point. There's 2 defensemen that I'm thinking of, and then there's a forward. Ultimately, oh man, I you know what? I'm gonna go with Roger McQueen.
Wow.
I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I think McQueen is somebody that they could, like I said, I think they could afford to take the swing on. And McQueen is probably one of the top 5 most talented players in this entire draft. Big body at 6'5", and probably over 200 right now. This was the last update weight-wise for him. But this is a guy that is one of the most talented and creative players in this entire draft. The skating is decent. He's fluid. He's good at changing his direction and his footing to use like deception to beat defenders and cut in and out different ways. His stick handling is some of the absolute best in the draft. Like this, like if you want to talk about guys that could stick handle in a phone booth, McQueen's one of them. And for a guy that's like 6'5" and may end up playing at like 6'6" at the NHL level, he has incredible hands. His shot is very good. He's got a quick release on it. He's not afraid to be physical, but if you're looking for Eric Lindros or Milan Lucic, you're going to be disappointed because I don't think there's a player in this draft that really resembles that type of power forward. Roger McQueen is not that guy. So don't expect that. The cons on him that I've seen from watching the footage is sometimes he requires a little more space to make some of those dynamic plays. Like he holds on to the puck for a little too long, and then he gets caught up and shoot up a bit. He'll rely a little too much on his skill and creativity to make higher danger plays instead of making the more cerebral and safer play that's open. So like he gets a little too dangle happy sometimes, and he'll pass up a better and more simple play to make that higher. And this is another thing, Verbeek met with McQueen, in a one-on-one situation. I heard that from a couple of different places, but McQueen is super talented. I think he needs to manage the puck just a little better. The other thing is that his skating mechanics do need improvement. He's a good skater, but not a great skater. What I would like to see is him lengthening his stride. There's another player that in this draft that I think that could really serve. That'll be a later round guy that could really. I guess you're laughing at the Lightning McQueen comment.
That and I was also laughing and nodding my head because THG pointed out that Mark put William Eklund instead of Victor.
It wasn't mine. That was Phil.
That's me. That's on me. Yeah. So that's me. You know what though? Roger is. I think he's going to be a really good player. The only thing is that he might be a little more of a project due to missing time with injuries, and that injury. Everybody's saying that he's good to go, but that's definitely something that might have him fall a little bit. I think if it wasn't for that, he's a top 5 player. So, but that's where I'm going if I'm Anaheim.
Phil, quick question, because he had 51 points in 53 games last year, but he also had 50 penalty minutes. This year, 17 games, 20 points, and 40 penalty minutes. Nobody's concerned about him being a little penalty happy?
There's another player in this draft that is a little penalty happy on defense that we're going to talk about, but I'm not concerned with McQueen. I think, there are times where he loses the puck and he gets a little undisciplined, and that's where those penalty minutes come in. But I think that's correctable. I don't see anything that's like noticeably irredeemable or incorrectable with him. Even like I said, the skating mechanics. I think there are things that he'll fix, and he'll end up being a real good player as long as he can stay healthy.
By the way, just for the record, Phil's graphics are more detailed and got more stats and everything else in there. So we're gonna go with more of those. Yeah. Matt, who's going to the Pittsburgh Penguins at number 11?
This sucks because
I know what you're gonna do.
Because this is a guy that I do want the Rangers to pick, especially if he falls to them. And the fact that it's one pick above where the Rangers pick, that sucks. But he's the second best defenseman in the draft for me. It's Jackson Smith.
Knew it. I friggin' knew it.
Asshole.
I hate
Asshole.
you.
It's not my fault. Sorry. This is just how the.
No, I know.
Yep, that was the guy that I was talking about.
I love Jackson Smith's game. I think he could be a really good. I don't know if he'll ever be if he'll be a number 1 defenseman in this league, but I could see him being a very good number 2 guy on a first pair, or possibly a second pair, depending on how teams want to, align their D pairs. But the thing that I love about Jackson Smith is he's a very good skater. He's got wheels. He could carry the puck out of the D zone. He can transition well. Very good at controlling the puck as well. Has a lot of offensive potential. Has a decent shot on him as well. The couple things he does have to work on, though, especially from what I saw, is decision making. Sometimes a little bit can be off, and I know he loves to move the puck, and sometimes there can be a little bit turnover. So passing decisions can be ironed out a little bit, but I'm not too surprised. Like he's a young guy. He has talent, so he does want to make stuff happen. So that I'm not too concerned that I believe that's going to get ironed out. And then the other thing, I think he's solid defensively as well, but there's a couple times where he does have some defensive lapses, so that needs to be ironed out a little bit. But overall, from that, like I said, I think he's the second best defenseman in this draft, and it sucks if Pittsburgh would take him, considering, like I said, it's one pick before the Rangers. So, but I mean, we'll see what happens. But yeah,
did you hack my laptop and steal my scouting report? Because that's literally my scout. The only thing you did not mention in my scouting report was, well, a couple of things was that, I mean, the D zone exits are great. He's one of the best at that, whether by passing or skating. And the fact that he needs to just be a little more physical consistently. But I mean, he will use the body to separate the player from the puck. Otherwise, my scouting report is literally almost the same as yours.
All right.
Well, I just thought you did a really good job on him.
Well, first off, by the way, great job. And this is the reason why you got to listen to all these guys, because they're very thorough on their scouting of all these prospects. Evan, you were tortured just now very badly listening to Jackson Smith going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Do the New York Rangers keep this pick? And if they do, who are they selecting?
Yeah, I'm going to go based on the assumption they do keep the pick. And this is, it's such a slam dunk. And Andrew, I know in the chat you're freaking loving the idea of Pittsburgh and Jackson Smith, but I don't know. I'm torn between a couple of different players. Like, I could go
exactly with layup now, is it?
It's definitely not a layup. No,
I have a feeling I know where you're going with. If you go D, I have a feeling I know where you're going with it.
I'm questioning if I want to go defense or if I want to go forward. That's really the issue here. But I think
there.
You gotta go with the life change. You gotta go with the life-changing guy.
Do I go bold? Like, do I go bold with that pick there? Because I do have one guy ahead of him still too.
I would have a couple of guys here. I don't know if you want me to name names.
Evan, go bold, because nobody plays it safe.
I have an off the board guy that could go a little later, but I think could end up being a better player than some of the other guys that could go with this pick.
I'll go bold. I gotta go with Braden Coots. I'm gonna go because I can tell you right now, every man needs a good cooter in their life, and I can tell you that this kid is not an exception to that. Great positioning. His play driving skill was just absolutely unbelievable. I love just everything that he does in terms of a compete level. The thing that I noticed the most, honestly, and my thought watching him is he reminds me of Filipino when he's healthy, because he's probably going to top out more as a 2C. He's one of the safer picks in the draft than anything. You're not going to get probably a higher ceiling than what he is right now. There are times where he doesn't join the rush, which is a concern, but a lot of that is because he really is responsible on both ends of the rink, and he wants to make sure that he's the first guy on the back check. So it's a good and bad thing that he doesn't join the rush at points. But, I mean, you are going to get 100% from this kid every single night. He's got a high motor, and he excelled as well at the World Juniors, which was the most impressive part to me.
What team did he play on in the World Juniors, by the way?
It was Team Canada, I believe.
Okay, so is Chris Drury actually going to draft somebody that's not an American?
He did it with Hoffman.
All right. Yeah, he did with one of them.
All right,
done that very often.
I want to, since it's the Rangers, we're gonna take a little time to talk about this because there's discussion here. I had a couple of guys. So one guy that I was looking at was Radim Merca. I think that to get a right shot defenseman like him that's 6'6", 218 pounds already, and his skates as well as he does, and he's also Braden Coots' teammate in Seattle, is really an interesting prospect. So the questions I have with Coots are, can his offense be anything more than 3C level at that next level? I'm not sure of it. You talk about his play driving, there's pros and cons to it. Yes, he factored into a large portion of their offense, but they did not have a ton of talent on that team. Merca came in and was kind of given free reign after being kind of held in check a little bit in the men's Czech league in Trinec. So, yeah, Coots was really good at the U18s. I am very wary about taking U18 numbers because the last time I really put a ton of stock into U18 numbers, it was 2004, and Petteri Nokalainen, Lauri Tukinen, and Ranger legend Lauri Korpikoski played together on a line for Finland. They were the best line in that tournament. And none of those players ended up being great NHLers. So I'm not saying that's how you have to view everybody at the World 18s, but yeah, I try not to put a ton of stock into those. I want to see them at the next level. The other guy I was looking at, the guy that I was saying that I would go off the board for, would be Cole Reshny. And I love Reshny. Guy that just has a crazy motor. He has an insane compete level. He's an incredible playmaker, one of the better ones in the draft, amazing patience and vision. He's got a real good shot. He's great at finding dead space and opportunities for not only himself, but for his teammates in terms of making plays. The skating is good. There is a tiny little bit of room for improvement. He needs to add a little more muscle and be a little more physical. And I think he needs to shoot a little more because his shot is really good, and it's going to open up playmaking opportunities for him. So I think Reshny would be really good. The other guy I could look at would be Carter Bear.
That was the other guy. That's the guy that I said I have ahead of Coots on my board, but Matt kind of tempted me to go bold, and I don't hate it. I wanted to go bold with this pick.
I have my concerns about Coots. If they were at a position where the prospect depth, like this is like the Hugh Jessman situation. Why are you going to go with a super safe pick with a low ceiling when the prospect cupboard is really bare? Like it's outside of Perot, where's the top end talent? So no one is taking a flyer on Taro Tsujimoto. No one is doing that, and no one is pulling an Ovechkin and trying to draft a player that's 3 days before the cutoff for next year's draft. So yeah, but I love Bear. A Bear would be a really good pick for them. I think that the shot is really good. He plays with a lot of pace, and that's something that Quinn loves.
He loves swagger.
I mean, Sullivan loves pace too. Bear is very good at finding dead space for scoring chances. He's actually a better passer than people give credit for. The compete level is great there. The only thing I would like to see change with Bear would be tries to do a little too much in traffic. I like the fact that he's aggressive and has the swagger to go make those moves because he's got the hands to do it. The skating mechanics are going to need improvement, and I think the decision-making sometimes at the puck is a little meh. But I think Bear could be a legitimate top six winger at the next level.
Now who's stealing my scouting report? Because I had like the same things because I wrote down that he struggles to create separation and open the ice with the his struggles at tight spaces.
To do it.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, on draft night, I would prefer them to take Carter Bear over Coots. I just went with it for the sake of chaos. A little chaos here.
All right. Okay. Well, Carter Bear, 40 goals, 42 assists last season, and he was a plus 33. I know everybody, Mark, you can't go with plus minus. That's a number that jumps out to you. When you're that high in the plus minus, that does jump out to you. So, Phil, got to stay with you. Who did the Red Wings take?
This is an interesting one. I feel like Radim Merca would be the best player available at this point. I don't know if they would take another defenseman, though, with having Simon Edvinson's finally starting to break out and play the way that they want him to play. He's showing flashes of being like a legitimate, top 4 defenseman. 31 points this year in 78 games. I mean, he could be a great complement to Moritz Seider. Imagine having to play that pairing like 3-4 times a year. I just think that, I don't know, like Merca could be like really round out that top 4 for the future, but I do think that they need help up front. I'm torn between a couple of guys here. I really am.
This part of the draft's really difficult because a lot of these guys are similar.
You know what? I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to go Lyndon Lakovic here.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I think they need another scorer. If there was a center available, I would have went there. But Lakovic is a big scoring forward. He kind of reminds me of a former Red Wing in Anthony Mantha. I really like that about him. Big time shot, one of the better shooters in this entire draft. He's not overly physical for his size. So again, if you're looking for a power forward, that's not somebody that you're going to look to be a real power forward. But Lakovic, his shot is so good that he could beat goalies from distance. He's got real good playmaking vision. One of the things I really like about Lakovic with the puck is that he can hold on to it for those extra few seconds to extend a play and find an open man, which is something that a lot of players struggle to do at first at that next level. So I think Lakovic will be able to do that kind of right away because of the fact that he's big and he uses his size well to protect the puck. So I think that opposing defenders are going to have some problems with him, especially if he's able to put on some muscle before he plays his first games. He's somewhere between like 190 and 200 right now, from what I know. I think maybe if he gets to the NHL level at like 205, somewhere in that range, I think he's going to be, fine. But I think ultimately you want him to max out around like 220-ish. And you want him to work on his skating. His skating definitely could use some work. He's got really, really soft hands. Really, really soft hands. So he can make those really nice moves and tight. But he does lack top end separation speed. He sometimes tends to force plays. And that's, I think, something that, again, is correctable. It's not a big a deal breaker for him. I could even see him going to Anaheim. I wouldn't even be shocked if Anaheim took him at 10. I really wouldn't. I think that he's the type of player that he would fit right in on Anaheim. So I really don't think this is much of a reach. Maybe he could go a little lower, a tiny bit, but a lot of mocks have him between like the 10, 15, maybe 16, 17 range. So it's interesting. The last thing I'll say with him is that the skating, yes, it is a little bit of an issue, but the problem is that this is a guy that's had like a 5-inch growth spurt over like the last 2 or so years. So he's kind of still growing into his body. So, for someone to be growing into their body and have skating issues, you could deal with that because, again, correctable, and it's projectable to the next level. So
the thing that I didn't like about him watching his tape is there was a lot of times he was spending too much time along the perimeters. He needs to learn how to get to the middle of the ice more.
I do agree with you there. That is definitely something that I saw. I would like him to drive the middle more. He does play like you said, like he's a little bit more of a perimeter player. But the one thing I like is that he's not afraid to get dirty down low and in the corners and stuff along the boards. Like that's like one thing. He doesn't shy away from contact there. But you're right. I would like to see him attack the middle of the ice more.
All right. Well, and you're looking at those numbers. Those are impressive numbers that Lakovic put up. So 14 to the Columbus Blue Jackets, Matt.
Yeah, well, I mean, we just talked about him, and again, I would love if the Rangers take him, but it's Carter Bear. Though, like the one part that I loved about, or the two things that I really loved about Carter Bear's game, when we were watching film on yesterday, his first shift, he was basically going out there and just hitting everything in his sight, which I do love because he has that physicality to his game. The other part that I do like, because on his Elite Prospects page, it does say he could play both center and wing. And
Yes.
I don't know which one he's going to per se take when he gets to the NHL. But like I said, the second thing that I did like when I noticed him on the videos, he's in the correct positioning almost every single time. And I like a player who's one, physical, and two, has very good defensive awareness. Those are like two things that I really love the most. I do agree with you guys that his skating needs a little bit of work, because I do think once he reaches top end speed, he's very fast. But I think his edge work does need a little bit of an improvement, because I think if he improves his edge work and he's able to, like, kind of cut in and out quickly, I do think he could generate a lot more speed, and I think he could be a much more dangerous player per se. So, and listen, I think his playmaking is solid. I think he's got a decent shot as well. I think if he just improves on those few couple things, I think Carter Bear could be a very effective, like, second line winger / center in the NHL. Eventually when he comes through.
All right, Evan, we're going to begin the Canadian portion of this draft, as we're going to have 4 consecutive draft picks, all from teams north of the border, starting with the Vancouver Canucks at number 15.
I think that I'm dead set on picking a defenseman here. I'm just really trying to decide which one. I think I'm going to go Cameron Reed, though, because there are rumors that, I mean, it's more than rumors. I think it's obvious that, at some point Quinn Hughes is going to leave and go play with the other Hughes brothers in New Jersey. I think they got to stock the covet now with some good left shot defensemen, especially. And obviously he's never going to be what Quinn Hughes is, but there are traits there with the great skating. He's good in transition, good at defending the rush, and he does have some good upside to potentially be a top pair defenseman. I view him more probably as like a good number 3 on a cup winning team, more than a top pair defenseman than anything, because he does need to improve his strength a lot. He gets thrown around a good amount. And then there are times where he does make poor decisions with the puck, where he's just throwing turnovers into the middle of the ice, where failing on breakouts, chipping the puck out on breakouts instead of just making the simple plays, because there are times he does shy away a little bit from contact. But overall, I think, if you iron out a little of those details there, which, what better organization to do it potentially than Vancouver, who did develop Quinn Hughes and help with that. I think Cameron Reed could be a really nice fit to be in their top 4 down the road.
All right. Philk, you're going to have the first of the 2 Montreal Canadian draft picks.
I've got 2 guys, one forward, one defenseman that I want to go with here. The defenseman, I can't believe he's fallen as far as he has. This is crazy to think. I don't think he's falling this far realistically on draft night. The forward is kind of like a typical Montreal pick, but I actually think he's going to be a really good player that can actually go right around this area, possibly even higher, just because I think the hands of the shot are
I hope it's not who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
friggin' amazing with this guy.
I hope it's not who I'm thinking of taking with the next pick.
Uh-oh. See, by the way,
I don't know
this is what GMs deal with on draft night, everybody.
Forward, because I feel like Montreal, they have Reinbacher, they have Lane Hudson. Do they want to add another big defenseman at this point? So my thing is, do I go with the big defenseman or do we go with the forward? I am.
I mean, it's back-to-back picks. You can't go wrong with either.
Yeah, you can't.
Right,
Yeah.
but Matt's got the next pick.
Yeah, Matt's got the next pick. It's not me. So
If anything, you guys can counsel on that.
I think, yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, I think you should take the forward, and then Matt's probably gonna take the defenseman that you're thinking of either way, because like you said, it's insane how he's fallen this far.
Oh, the defenseman. You guys probably all know the defenseman on this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take the forward at this point. I'm going to go Justin Carbonell.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking.
I'm going to go Carbonell. I think he's just he's got an NHL frame already. He's like 6'1" and about 200 pounds, like right now. I think that there's a lot of talent there. He was number 2 in the Quebec Major Junior League in goals this year. He's a solid skater for his size, but lacks real top end speed. Like, he's not going to beat you with his speed and separate. He can, get in there, and like his hands and his shot are some of the best in the class. Like, he's a really good passer. He's great at selling deception to make a play. He can make those dynamic plays in tight, whether it's beating, somebody one-on-one, going through sticks and feet, making the move, or he can make that high danger pass. He actually throws a real solid body check. Like, he's a kind of like a tank. Like, he almost reminds me of, this is a real throwback, but he reminds me a little bit of someone like Steve Bernier in his draft year. I think he has better hand. I think he's more projectable to the NHL level than Bernier was, because I think he's a better skater than Bernier was. The things that he's going to need to work on, or he's going to need to play at a higher pace with and without the puck. His burst is going to need to improve. His shot selection is kind of erratic at times, and defensively, he's really not good at all. That's going to need to definitely improve leaps and bounds at the next level. But I mean, I just think that there's a lot of talent here, and some think that he's going to end up rising in the draft. But if you got him at 16, it would be a really good pick.
Yeah, the upside's really high.
It is very, very, very high.
How does somebody have the name Carbonell and be terrible defensively? Because NHL history tells us otherwise.
Yeah, well, that's again, historic name, but it doesn't necessarily mean, there was a Brent Gretzky and there was a Wayne Gretzky, and the Brent Gretzky did not come anywhere close to Wayne. So
yeah, that although they do have the highest scoring brother combo of all time. Matt, who's going? This is 17 to the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, Phil was talking about this guy. It would be a shock if he would drop this far, but it's Radim Murtka. I do like Murtka's game a lot. The one thing that I do like is he keeps his game very simple, and I think that he has a very high floor, which is something I do like. I don't know if I don't think he'll ever be like a top defenseman in the league, but I could see him being a very solid second pair guy. And like I said, since he has a high floor, I could see him being a very stable third pair guy as well. I think he's very solid defensively. He can throw a hit. He can separate guys from the body. Decent skater as well. Can move the puck out of the zone. Like I said, I don't think he'll ever have the full offensive upside, which is something that I think he could work on and does need to work on if he ever wants to take that next step and be like a very solid, like, top end defenseman in this league. But like I said, I do love the fact that he has a high floor. And yeah, I think this would be a very pick for Montreal at 17.
All right. And now concluding the Canadian swing of this draft, Evan, 18 to the Calgary Flames.
There's a defenseman that I like, that I thought about taking here, but I'm going to go with a personal favorite and a pick that I think could be more of a day 2 pick, but I think could be a fun pick here. I'm going Cameron Schmidt. The biggest concern is obviously the elephant in the room being his size, which that did not stop Calgary before. And I know it's different regimes from now to then, but Johnny Gaudreau obviously being there, rest in peace. But he's not going to be as good as Cole Caulfield, but he's the Cole Caulfield of this draft. His skating is unbelievable. His shot is ridiculous. His playmaking is great. And honestly, for his size, it's not like he's getting pushed around out there too much because of the fact that he is just such a good skater. He's able to evade some of the physicality that comes his way, similarly to Caulfield. The problem is really inconsistency is something that has been noticed with him. And then he's also not good in his own end, which isn't really a surprise because, again, similar to a guy like Caulfield and Cole Yzerman kind of last year profile this way as well, just kind of more one-dimensional. I think he has a little bit more spaced out tools compared to Cole Yzerman, but I think this is a personal favorite more than anything. I think it could be a fun pick for Calgary at 18.
All right. We're swinging right back to the St. Louis Blues. Their season ended in probably the most disappointing fashion, letting in the game-tying goal with under 2 seconds remaining, Phil, and then losing in overtime to the Winnipeg Jets. How do they start the NHL draft in 2025?
Oh, man. This is where you were hoping that someone like, Cameron Reed would have been available. I think I have to go between two defensemen here. One is a little more flashy, and the other one is solid. I think I'm probably going to have to go with Keyshawn Aitchison, though. I'm actually kind of surprised that he's fallen this far. It's not completely shocking, though. There are some concerns to his game. From the tape that I watched, I would say, and I know this is probably going to be it's going to turn people off. It's probably like an instant turn off, but he kind of reminds me of Jacob Trouba.
Yeah,
we said that yesterday.
Yeah, it's just the way that he plays is kind of a similar. He's a solid skater. I think he's a better skater than Trouba. He's got good mobility and lateral movement. His shot is excellent, and unlike Trouba, he can hit the damn net with it, which is a good thing. He scored 30 goals over the course of the regular season and the playoffs for Barrie. That should tell you something, right there. I can't even believe that he scored that many goals. The shot is great. So it's really, really good. I like him in that aspect. I like the hitting. He's a guy that you got to be aware of where he is on the ice. He's good with the stick, which, again, a lot of guys use that. Young guys will use that as first line of defense. And, of course, you want to control your gaps. You want to break up plays. But he's good at wrapping up forwards, and he can separate them with the body. He's probably the strongest player in this draft. He's a complete gym rat. I don't know if you guys have seen the videos of him deadlifting. Guy is a freaking unit. He's an absolute unit. He's ripped. So he's probably the most physically strong player in the draft. The one thing, you like the physicality, but he sometimes will prioritize throwing a big hit over the puck, especially pinching on the line, just like Trouba. He'll sometimes just he'll prioritize that over the puck, and they're like, "What are you doing, man?" He can sometimes, again, like Trouba, lose himself positionally at times in his own zone. He'll pull up late on loose pucks due to that. There are definitely some concerns there. Definitely want a solid defensive coach to really kind of rein him in. If you can rein him in, I think that he is just there's a lot of raw talent there that can lead him to be a legitimate top 4 defenseman. I don't know about top pairing. I can see him being a number 3 two-way defender, but he's a guy that come playoff time could be a real valuable piece to your team because he plays a tough brand of hockey. The other thing I'll say is that he's a little undisciplined. Sometimes he'll just lose the puck and then he'll whack somebody out of nowhere. Like, what are you doing? Like, don't put the team in the box because you lost the puck.
Very true, but like,
yeah. So it's
I had him low because of that.
yeah. I mean, I get why some would have him low. I get why some would have him high. I mean, he plays with a lot of confidence and a lot of swagger. There are times where he'll take the puck and he'll control it and he'll make moves, and you're like, oh, wow, like he pulled that one out of the hat. And really, like I saw a clip where there was a forward on him, and it looked like he was going back into the zone, but he pivoted away, and the forward literally like skated into the defensive zone, and he like practically broke this guy's ankles and went the other way. And you're just like, whoa, like he can do that. So yeah, there's potential. I don't think Trouba was ever like that for my money. But I think there's a player there. I just think that the undisciplined play and the consistency are things that can be worked on and fixed. And if he does, I think he's a solid 3, a real solid 3, borderline 2.
All right. Matt, number 20, we go right back to the Columbus Blue Jackets again. Who do you got?
This is I mean, for me, this is probably the other defenseman that Phil was talking about, but for me, it's Logan Hensler at number 20. I like Hensler. I don't think he had the best World Juniors per se, in my opinion, but I think, he's not the biggest guy. He is only 6'2", but he's a very good skater. He can move up and down the ice. He can move the puck as well. He has solid playmaking abilities. He's solid defensively as well. He's a very good two-way defenseman, in my opinion. A very good stick as well. The two things I would say he has to work on is, one, improve his shot a little bit. He doesn't have the biggest booming shot in the world for a defenseman, and maybe just improve his physicality a little bit, because he can get knocked off the puck a little bit easier. But I do think this guy like Hensler could be a solid second pairing guy for you on a team, maybe like a solid 4, number 5 guy in the future in his career.
All right. Evan, going 21 to the Ottawa Senators.
There are 2 forwards I'm torn between. One of them I think is a bit more polished than the other right now, but the other I think has better upside. I'm going to go with Colin Potter, though, here. I think that he's one of the better skaters in the draft. He controls the puck well. I like his shot. He's really good in transition. The thing that was helping him this year is that he did improve throughout the year with his play away from the puck. He needs to still be better in that regard, but he did improve, at least in that he does need to put on some muscle. He does get pushed around a good amount. His playmaking is a little suspect. You'd like to see that improve because he does force plays a bit too much at times when he is trying to set up his teammates and just leading the turnovers coming the other way. But I think the biggest drawback with Potter is that he might be someone that's more profiled to move to the wing in the future. He's probably going to get drafted as a center, but I think he's someone that's going to be better on the wing going forward with the way that he plays the game.
Yeah, you're definitely. I have him as a top 5 skater in this draft. He's just so quick and effortless. The edge work and acceleration are unbelievable. The shot is great mechanics, great release. He's got great hands and can pull off moves at high speed, and he doesn't shy away from contact at all. Like, his compete level is great. Like, I think he can end up going higher in the draft if a team falls in love with him, which is very possible. But the playmaking, he needs to slow the play down at times. Like, he plays at a very, very high speed. He's a very good playmaker, but he needs to slow it down a little bit. His defense and his positional awareness need to be also improved. But I agree with you. I think he's technically a center, but I think he profiles better as a winger at the NHL level. I'm totally with you on that. So,
and everybody, I hope you're going to enjoy seeing a lot of the same teams, because we're in the trade portion of the draft, because here come the Philadelphia Flyers once again at 22, Felk.
Oh. do they need defense or do they need a forward? And that's really what this comes down to for me because, I mean, I like Cam York.
I mean, we went with a forward earlier, so
I like Sanheim. And yeah, and they did go forward, but I think that was a place where you had to go forward.
true.
And they do draft at 31 again.
Yeah, and I think there are defensemen that are available.
Does a goaltender go here?
I mean, that's a good point. I mean,
That's a really good question.
Harrison's young, and I think they might be high on him. I don't know if I see a long-term, fit there. Could Joshua Ravensbergen go here? Maybe that could be a good spot for him too. And you just got Trevor Zegras, so maybe you don't go forward here. They've got Matt V. Mitch. Oh. All right. You know what? I think I'm going to go defense here. And for me, the guy that I was actually talking about before, Matt, when you said Hensler, I was actually talking about Sasha Boumediene, and I'm going to go Sasha Boumediene here.
Wow, okay.
I didn't even look at him, so.
Yeah, he I think there's a very good defenseman to be had here. Left shot D. I think the Flyers could use a left shot D. I mean, Sanheim can play either side. Drysdale's a right shot. Cam York could play either side. But you bring in Sasha Boumediene to that core, and you got a real good player here. I think there's room for some offensive growth here. He was one of the hardest players for me to scout out of everybody here because the way that they use him at Boston U was different from the way that he was used at the U18s for Team Sweden. Like at the U18s, he had a lot more offensive freedom to go do the things that he wanted to do. He's an underrated passer. I think his first pass is really good. He's very, very mobile. At BU, he showed you signs of real good offensive IQ by jumping into the rush and into the play at the right times. He's good at managing the puck in his own zone. I mean, if he wants to skate the puck out, he can definitely beat the forecheckers and skate the puck out. But he's, again, real good first pass as well. Again, cons, I would say it was hard to judge him just because he was the second youngest player in the NCAA with BU. But again, the usage was different for Team Sweden. The other thing I would like to see with him is that I would like to see more physicality, especially for his size, because he's like 6'2", maybe approaching 190 at this point right now. They list him at 183, but I think he's going to play well over 200. I think he'll play somewhere around 210 at his max. But I think this is a guy that could really kind of hold down a second pairing as a decent two-way guy. I want to see a little more confidence with the puck at the NCAA level, at least. I think he's probably a couple of years away at the very earliest. But there is a very, very solid player. And another thing I'll look back at, just because he played there, was Charlie McAvoy was a guy who didn't put up a lot of offensive numbers early on, and then the offense started coming along as he played there. But again, it's different because true freshmen don't usually come along and put up, big time numbers in the NCAA. So it's tough to gauge those guys. So I think there is a top four defenseman here in Boumediene, likely a second pairing guy, but very good two-way guy. And I think Philadelphia would be very happy to come away with him at 22.
All right. Right back to the Nashville Predators at 23, Matt.
I was gonna go Cole Reshny. I think like Phil talked about before, I really love Reshny's game, especially like we were looking at his at some of his videos yesterday. I mean, the guy is a very good playmaker, silky hands, which is something I really like. He's a very good passer of the puck. He really, he knows how to find his teammates when they're open. He's a very good two-way forward as well. That's another thing that I liked about him. Every time, his team was back in the D zone, he was always in the correct positioning, which I do like. The only two things that I do think he kind of has to work on is one, he's a little bit on the smaller side, only 5'10", so he's definitely going to have to bulk up a little bit, get a little bit stronger, because when he does get into the corner and, those big hits are being thrown, he kind of does shy a little bit away from them. Also, I do think he has a decent shot, but I would like to see him use a little bit more. So those are really the only two things I would say he needs to improve on. But other than that, I like Reshny as a player.
All right.
Yeah.
Going to the Los Angeles Kings at 24. Evan, who's going to help them wash the bad taste of that out of that first round loss to the Edmonton Oilers out of their mouth?
You're muted.
You muted.
I'm debating if I want to go with a goalie here or not. I'm gonna go with Ben Kendall. I like Ben Kendall.
Oh man,
a lot. He's
that's such a good pick for them.
Just like the Amazon Kindle, he's efficient. He's good at about everything though. Like I like his playmaking a lot. He's really got good vision, which correlates with his playmaking. Like he finds these passes, and he's just so good at setting his teammates up. Plays a good north-south game, and honestly, his offensive upside still has a lot. There's a lot there. He could be a top offensive player in this draft class by the time it's all said and done. And he plays good in his own end. The problem really is that his skating isn't that great. I think he needs to put on a bit of muscle. And then, of course, coming with the fact that he does like to set his teammates up and play make, there are a good amount of turnovers every now and then from him. But overall, I think he has one of the best offensive upsides in the entire class. And this would be a steal here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Like the one thing that I saw, because the one thing he's really good at, and I really like it, and it reminds me of Datsuk in a way, is that he's a master pickpocket thief. Like he is really good at like sweep checking and stick checking and taking away the puck and going the other way with it. He's got a pretty good compete level in that regard, but you're right, like smaller stature, but like this guy has just incredible hands, man. Like I think anyone that gets this player is getting a steal. And if they overlook this guy because of size, they're making a mistake. If it was up to me, I think he'd be going higher in this draft, because I think this is one of those boomer bust prospects just because of the fact that he's smaller, but the talent level is so friggin' high with this guy. Like just the ability to hold on to the puck for those extra few seconds and open up a play or find an open man is just something that a lot of guys may not have at this point at that age. So the maturity to be able to do that and just and it's not like he's trying to force high danger plays a lot. Like he's very cerebral. Like he's one of the players I really, really like in this class. So yeah, that's a really good pick for LA at 24.
I think the way you just described them, both of you guys, sounds like this guy is tailor-made for the Los Angeles Kings. Just the only thing that gives me any hesitance is the 5'10", 176 pounds. But like you said, Phil, don't underestimate him.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He's got to put on a bit of muscle there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Phil. Oh, sorry, you were saying?
No, I said absolutely to what Evan said.
Phil, going to the Chicago Blackhawks at 25. Who do you got?
This feels like this could be a real good place for Joshua Ravensburger to go, but I don't know if I want to take him there. I don't. Chicago could use a goalie.
Oh, they got Spencer Knight now, goalie of the future.
You know what?
There's another team later in the draft that I do think he probably will end up going to if he falls a little bit.
Yeah, I'm lined up for that pick, and I know where you're talking about.
You know what?
There's two
Yeah,
picks I'm wondering with that one.
I do think, yeah, you know what? I think I know who you're talking about too, and I think he'd be a real good fit there. So, for the sake of that, I think I'm going to leave him. Cullen Potter would have been good here. I think they could have used him. But to replace a guy like Dante Fabro, I think I'm going to go Blake Fiddler.
Damn it, he was gonna be the next pick.
That's who I was. That's who I would have took here.
Blake Fiddler would be, Fabro was, I thought it was Nashville. I'm sorry. I thought it was Nashville that was picking at 25. I was reading it wrong. But I think Blake Fiddler would actually be a really, really, really good pick here. I think this is someone with top 4 potential and possibly more. I think there may be room for offensive growth with him. He's mobile for his size. I think his positional awareness needs to improve a little bit. There are times where it looked like he was kind of asleep at the wheel, and he caught him kind of like puck watching. So I think that needs to improve. I think, but he can walk the line at the point. He is physical, and he's not afraid to use his size and strength to his advantage. He's he's a decent first passer. He's good in transition. His shot is very good. He almost kind of reminds me of like a poor man's Shea Weber. I hate to, I'm not saying he's going to be Shea Weber or be anything close to him. So please keep that in mind. But it just, the way that he plays sometimes reminds me of him. He's got the big booming shot. He can absolutely rip wrist and snapshots from distance and beat goalies, especially with screens. But I do think that they're at the worst, I could see this guy being maybe a 5, but I think in the right situation, maybe he ends up as a 2 with a good partner anchoring that pair. Realistically, I think he's a 4. I think he's a 4 where you could put him with a real good puck mover, and he could be the physical guy on that pairing. So I like this kid a lot. If the Rangers were picking lower, I wouldn't mind taking him there. So.
Yeah, fiddle me this, Batman.
Oh my God!
You know what?
Bad puns all over so far.
You know what? I'm glad that Matt did that, because I never got in the Michael Misa, Jar Jar Binks thing of Misa got to go number 2 in the draft.
Oh God!
So,
Well, the overhead on that one.
Matt, right back to you. Who is Nashville taking at 26?
See, I was gonna go defenseman here just because so far in the draft we have we have 2 forwards going there. Rushing, I forgot who the other one was. I think it was Mark Tone going 6 to Nashville. So I don't have any other defensemen.
No, it was Denoye.
Denoye, sorry. So I don't have another defenseman, so I'll just throw him on another forward. Malcolm Spence for me. I didn't watch too much on him, but from what me and Evan both saw, he's a solid 2-way guy. Has a decent shot on him, decent passer as well. Like I said, I don't have too much on him just because I didn't watch that much. But I think he's gonna be a solid forward in the NHL.
I'll give you a little more about him then, because I spent some time on him. I like the player, but when we were talking about guys that need to fix their skating before, I said there was a guy that had awkward mechanics. Malcolm Spence has a really weird hunch when he skates, and he needs to lengthen his strides. For a guy that's as big as he is, 6'3", maybe he'll end up even being 6'4" at the NHL level. But he needs to lengthen his strides out. He's got a real good shot. He's an extremely tenacious forechecker with a very, very high compete level, plays with a really good pace. He's got good hands, so he can make moves in tight. His playmaking is underrated. That's probably the most underrated and overlooked part of his game. He's a better playmaker than a lot of people give credit for. There were a lot of clips I saw of him where he's making no-look passes, and you're like, wow, like a guy that plays like this type of game can make those. So you wouldn't expect that out of him. His shot selection can be kind of erratic at times. You're going to need to improve that aside from the skating mechanics. And for as good of a player as he is with the compete level, I would like to see that more consistently from game to game from him. Like there are some games where you're just like, where are you, dude? And you can't really have that at the next level. I think he ends up being probably a good middle six player at this point. But this is a guy that you're going to want on your team come playoff time. I'll tell you that right now.
All right. So the next two picks are made by the top teams in the Metro Division and overall in the NHL in the Central Division, starting with the Washington Capitals at 27. Evan, this one's you, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that this is a perfect spot for Bill Zonin to go. This is just probably the wet dream for Washington to have Tom Wilson light on their hockey team as well, because that's just what he is. His compete level is through the roof. He back checks like a motherfucker. He's got a nose for the net, plays physical, and just like Tom Wilson, he makes a lot of just underrated good passes and scores some sneaky good goals to go along with that. Like the offensive upside, the question that I have is it high? Like that's really where I wonder is how high could it go? Because realistically, he probably tops out as like a third line checking scoring forward in the bottom six. You know, at worst, you're getting a fourth liner. I think he'll stick at the very least at that, because I always have questions with guys coming from the queue. It's like, how much is the scoring sticky for these guys? And then the skating also is definitely a concern for him. But I mean, overall, to have him play on the same team as Tom Wilson and maybe learn some things from there, maybe there is a little bit of a higher ceiling with a guy like Zonin. But I really just like it in terms of an overall fit.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. Yeah, the skating definitely needs to. There needs to be an improvement there. I question his playmaking. There are times where he makes some pretty good passes. And if you watched Scouching, Will, who runs that channel, was actually pretty high on his playmaking. He said that he was impressed with his playmaking. He said it was one of his more underrated facets of his game. I have my concerns about it personally, but I do agree with you. I think this is just a perfect fit for him there. And at 27, it's good value. So great pick by you there, Evan. Really.
All right, Phil, you're up with the President's Trophy winner, Winnipeg Jets.
Ooh, where do I want to go here?
I know who I would pick here. I have two names.
Let's see who is remaining. I'm torn between two players right now. If Blake Fiddler fell, I think this would have been the absolute perfect spot for him, because they could use a guy like him. But I also do think they could use a forward, because Kyle Connor's a free agent after this upcoming season. You know what? I'm gonna go with Jack Murtaugh.
That's who I was thinking as one of them.
The defenseman that I was thinking of was Henry Brustevich.
That's who those are the same names I was thinking of.
Yeah, I would, because I think that he could come in. Brustevich, I think, could come in and be a top four defenseman one day. I think there is also offensive room for growth, because a lot of the offense coming from the back end was Sam Dickinson, who led them in scoring, and then Oliver Bonk, who had 40 points in just over 50 games. So, but I'm going to go with Murtaugh just because I think that they're going to want another shooter. I think Nikolai Ehlers is going to be gone this offseason. So to bring in a guy that could probably, with some work, be a top 6 forward, I just think that there's opportunity there for him. I like the player. They're not afraid to go to the US NDTP, and they had Chaz Lucius was there. He's a Boston University commit for next year, so he's a bit more of a project. But and it was harder to get tape on him because he wasn't playing college or OHL or CHL. So it was tougher to get tape on him, but he's got NHL level size already. I think there's room for growth with the skating. He's got good straight line speed, but he doesn't have like the high end separation speed. I would like to see him improve his awareness in his own zone, but he plays good in transition. He can make high danger plays, and his highlight reel is actually full of real good, like high end passing and playmaking. Like I've seen him like at least 3 or 4 different clips of where he's throwing bombs from his own defensive zone to like the near offensive blue line. You're like, shit, what a pass from that kid. So I think there's a ton of talent there. I just think he's a little bit more of a project, but he's going to a real good school, and I think they'll develop him properly there. So I think this would be a real good pick at 28 for Winnipeg.
And Matt, of course, you have to get Murtaugh early before he gets too old for this shit. Anyway, I'm getting too old for this. Murtaugh. Okay. Phil is not laughing whatsoever on this.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Lethal Weapon.
I haven't seen Lethal Weapon since I was a kid.
Well, Matt got it. That's all that really matters. Matt, you're up with the Carolina Hurricanes at 27.
This is about as a layup by design pick as you could possibly get.
I know where you're going here.
Oh, hold on. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. 29 with Calgary.
There we go. The layup.
What happened?
Are we at Calgary right now?
No, Carolina's at 29.
No, I know exactly where you're going here.
I don't know why the draft simulator, because the draft simulator has Carolina at 30 here.
No, Carolina's at 29.
I don't know what happened here then.
Yeah, so we always talk about how Carolina needs a goalie. Joshua Ravensburger would be the obvious pick here.
Yeah, that's why I said I was leaving it.
Yeah, I didn't watch too much of Ravensburger just because, goaltending, and you don't really expect him to go in the first round. But, he looks solid for the most part. I would say the only thing that he kind of has to work on, because this is kind of a shot where opposing teams would kind of try to get him to score goals. He kind of maybe needs to work a little bit on his glove hand, because teams kind of do tend to aim more for the glove hand, and they do beat him a little bit more on that side. So, but like I said, Carolina needs a goaltender, so he's the obvious pick here to go at pick number 29.
Yeah. All right. And actually, Phil, give your thoughts first, because I have a question on this one.
I was gonna say it was tougher to find film on him, and like an actual like report and stuff like that to watch, like breakdown shift by shift for him. So it's kind of hard to just go with goaltending based on highlights. But a couple of things that I noticed with him was that he's got great mobility for his size. He tracks the puck well. He's very quick going post to post. Is very aggressive, and he gets to the top of his crease often to make himself bigger. But he needs to work on rebound control. His recovery time needs to be better, getting back to his feet. And sometimes he's down a little too early, which kind of goes along with what Matt's saying about getting beaten glove side. I think if he can fix the timing on that, I think the glove side results will be a little better, because Matt was definitely right. He definitely gets victimized a little bit on the glove, so he's got to fix that up a bit.
Evan, is this sort of a sign that there's really a change, that the emphasis on goaltending isn't there as much because we're going to have our first goalie drafted in this draft at 29.
I mean, it's part of that, but it's also just because there's not really a lot of goaltending talent out there. I mean, we've seen in the past, like Spencer Knight went higher, I think, than most people expected. So I think it's more just a talent thing than anything.
All right. Well, right back at you. San Jose Sharks with number 30.
See, that threw me off. I don't know why the simulator has the end of the draft order a little bit mixed up here, but San Jose's here. I'll go with. I think I'm gonna go with a defenseman here. I'm trying to think of which one I want to go with. Just because there's two guys that I'm really thinking could be good fits here. But I'll go Jacob Rombach just because I think having a good, just solid shutdown guy there would be nice. He's good on puck retrievals. The problem is like there are flashes of EJ Emery in this draft where it's like there is no offensive tools with this kid. You wish that he would play a little bit more physical considering his size and everything, but I mean, for a pure shutdown guy, he does not make mistakes in his own end, and that's what's the best part about him. He's always positioned well, knows how to control gaps. I just think for a shutdown guy, it would be perfect for San Jose. There's another defenseman that I could have went with who does have more offensive upside, but I'll go a little bit different here.
All right. Actually didn't have the graphic on him. So
yeah, he was somebody that I did not have as a first round pick at all. So I really didn't do a lot of film on him. That was completely off the board for me. So I can't say a whole lot about him.
Who was that guy Columbus drafted that was completely off the board? The
Zegor Chinikov. Nobody knew anything about him. They completely threw everyone off with that pick.
All right. Well, we're down to the last two of the first round. Why am I thinking that we're missing one? Because should have gone around evenly. Phil, right to you with number 31. Philadelphia Flyers.
Ooh. This is a tough one for me. There's a couple different ways they could go. I have one player that I think like fits the way that they would want to play. Another player on the wing that might fit it. This might be a little off the board. I've seen him mocked different places, but I'm gonna go Ivan Ryabkin. Like he's got a little bit of a mean streak to him, and he's got a temper. I would definitely think that he's somebody that could come in and just kind of play the way that they used to really kind of play, like the Broad Street Bullies type mentality. Like he's not big, but he's stocky, and he's got like almost like a fire hydrant type frame. Like it's tough to judge him because he played in the NHL, which is like their junior league in Russia, and then he went to the USHL with the Muskegon Lumberjacks, and he was over a point per game, but he had 70 penalty minutes in 27 games. So he might need to rein himself in there. I just think that he reminds me a little bit of like Sam Bennett, maybe, like just that type of way. And I think Philadelphia would love to get their hands on a player like that. So I like the player. I think there's talent there. I think he projects more as like a middle six, like shit disturber type that can add you offense. Like I think of a combination of like maybe like a Sam Bennett and like a Nazem Kadri type. But he's gunning
a combination of Sam Bennett and Nazem Kadri.
Yeah, something like that. Like that's the type of like game he can give you. I think. I think he's He's skilled enough to the point where he'll produce points for you at that next level, but you're gonna have to worry about him serving time in the box a bit. Because if he doesn't get himself in check, I think he's a guy that like is kind of prone to taking some dumb penalties. So yeah, I like the player. I think you could take a swing here this late in the draft or this late in the first round.
All right. And lastly, to close out the first round on the first day of the NHL draft, Calgary Flames at 32, Matt.
This was the last guy I had written down, so I'm gonna go with him here. Vaclav Nestrasil. I didn't really love his game per se. I mean, I only watched a little bit of him, but I mean, he throws the body, has decent hands. I mean, playmaking could maybe improve a little bit. Decent shot. Like I said, I didn't watch like too much on him because he was one of the last couple of guys that I did watch. But yeah, I'll go with him as the 32nd pick.
All right, because I did not have that one. Oh, good. Phil already had that one.
Yeah,
in there. All right. By the way, Todd asked a good question right here. Ottawa's first round pick is forfeited on one of these years.
I haven't heard any update about that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that been done yet, but we'll try to get to the bottom of that one because every single mock had him in there, and I completely forgot about that.
This is a weird thing. I was just looking on Twitter, and this was a repost from a recent 32 Thoughts podcast, but it said, Elliot Friedman, I've heard a rumor that Anton Frondel could go number 2 to San Jose. People wouldn't be surprised, but this time of year, everybody lies. So,
I could tell you right now, if Frondel goes second, I do not
going 3 at Chicago.
That, or if the rumors are true that Chicago would maybe move their pick, I'm giving them anything they want to get Michael Misa at 3rd overall. I do not care what the Rangers would trade at that point.
Yeah, I would absolutely. If somehow he fell to 3 and Chicago wanted to move him, I'm moving heaven and earth to try to get that guy because that's I think a legit number 1 center one day. I don't know if he's like an elite franchise guy, but my comparable for him would be Jonathan Taves.
That's a good shout, yeah.
Okay, according to the AI on Google, the Ottawa Senators will forfeit their first round pick in 2026 of the NHL draft. Or actually the NHL draft of 2026. You guys know what I mean. Due to the penalty imposed by the league for issues related to the Evgeny Dadonov trade. The penalty stems from the Senators' handling of Dadonov's no trade clause during a trade to the Vegas Golden Knights. The Senators had the option to forfeit their first round pick, 2024, 25, or 26. They chose to keep their 24th pick and 25th pick. The years, and then thus forfeiting. So they just forfeited out of what a lot of people are saying is one of the deepest NHL drafts in recent history coming up next year.
We'll see how true that ends up being, just because like things change quickly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Things can absolutely change. So,
who was the first pick, by the way, in the 2nd round? Because there was a name that I really wanted to take in the 1st round. It just that
the Sharks.
Yeah.
I don't know if they double up on defenseman then, because I like Max Sanika a lot. That was the other guy I was tempted to take.
Who?
Max Sanika.
He's mocked very low.
I like him a bit. I think he's got good upside with his offense.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers don't really. I don't know. The numbers aren't there just because he only played in 24 games in Portland. So it's like it's tough to gauge on that. I'm surprised because I've seen guys like William Moore mocked there.
Yeah, I had him on my list. I had Riker Lee on my list.
Yeah, Riker Lee was another one that looks like a high 2nd round pick. I mean, I don't get why Shane Van Sage has been mocked higher than Riker Lee.
Yeah, I put him at the bottom of my board. I don't get the hype there at all. I really don't.
Yeah, well, I think he's got a high floor, but I wonder about his ceiling.
Well, when
Yeah,
you
I
look at
agree.
this draft and you look at guys that potentially, or teams, I should say, that could potentially be moving down or moving up, what's some of the trade spots that you're looking at? Matt, I'll start with you since I know you're running out in a minute.
Some of the trade spots. Oof. I'm not really sure off the top of my head.
All right. I mean, obviously we know 4 for Utah, but then again, if there's a player that they love, like we talked about Brady Martin and the one we chose for them, which was James Higgins, falls to them. So
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, Utah's one. I mean, we heard the rumors that Chicago could trade out of 3, but I mean, like the rumor was saying, if Rondell would somehow go to 2, which I think that would be a massive mistake by San Jose. I know Chicago would be open to trading that pick, but I think if Misa falls him at 3, I don't see any reason that they would trade that pick unless they get blown away. But I mean, for me, you would have to offer a lot. At
Yeah,
that point
you would
get
have
the number
to you
3
would have to
pick.
blow them away. Really, I'm with Matt on that. Like I after they drafted Levshinov, in 2024, I think that they would look to add another center if available. I mean, obviously they would take Matthew Schaefer if Michael Misa somehow went number 1 and he didn't, and Schaefer didn't go 2. But I think if Misa is available, if it's between Misa and Martone or Higgins at 3, I think they take Misa and they run, because you can move Frankie Nazar or Oliver Moore to the wing, and I think both of them could. I think Nazar would probably be a better wing at the NHL level than a center, if you ask me. But I think Misa would be a perfect 1A, 1B, or number 2 behind Bedard.
Yeah, you can't pass that up there.
No.
I mean, another trade spot maybe is Boston. We heard rumors about that, and also Sweeney's not really a smart GM by any means, so it wouldn't surprise me if he took some stupid offer, and traded 7 away. Outside of that, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe late in the first round, if there's like guys that fall, because like, during our mock draft with Logan Hensler falling, I think that's a guy that if he falls the way that we had him, a team might trade up, or Merca, like he was falling in our mock draft, maybe a team trades up to get him.
You know what? I don't think he falls out of the
Neither
top
do I,
10 there,
but
Jeff.
I'm saying if it fell the way that our draft board went.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying there. I just think everybody points to Seattle because he played for the Thunderbirds and he's right in their backyard, and there's there's probably a familiarity with him because it's easier to go watch him play. I think with Merca, for me, when I watch him play, I feel like there could be a developmental curve that would be very similar to Moritz Seider's, because Moritz Seider, when he was drafted, like nobody thought that he would be like this crazy good offensive defenseman, and then he had those really good seasons in the Swedish league, and he just took off there, and then it translated over to the NHL. But there are things with Merca that I see, like his skating is phenomenal. There are times where, like at the World Juniors, and then and in Seattle, where he would just sometimes rush from end to end, and his shot's really good, I think. But yeah, I think there's decision making issues that need to be like ironed out. But I do think that with the right training, maybe he could end up being someone like, I don't think as good as Seider, but I think he could take a similar developmental curve.
All right. And we're going to get to a couple of your questions and your comments in a second. But first, I had to ask Philk about another person he scouted recently. Philk, what are your thoughts about Mark Williams from the K-Stars?
Oh, my God. Compete level is decent. Definitely needs to back check a little more at times.
Oh,
no, I'm kidding there. No, for a guy who sells himself short, there's definitely a little more offensive talent than I thought. You're not afraid to go to the dirty areas. you were definitely that one dude that you kept skating for pucks with. It was actually a decent skater. Like you were going like stride for stride with him, and you were going into the corners with him. I was like, all right, I like that. Definitely a better playmaker. There were a couple times, like there was one play where it was towards the end where Maria and I were sitting, and the puck came to you, and instead of holding on to it, you did like a no look behind the back dump, and it ended up like your teammates might have been going off, but I
Yeah, they were
felt
changing on the defense was changing.
so I thought that was a play where you could have held on to it for a little bit because yeah, the defender was close to you, but you had space to kind of look up, and even if you had to go and dump it to like the goalie or even then dump it, but you like completely no looked, and I was like, I even said to Maria, I was like, should have held on to the puck there because you could have made the play or at least tried to turn around and drive and attack the middle of the ice and get a shot off there.
Well, yeah, definitely. And when you're in that position, if it's the one I was thinking of, below the goal line,
Yeah,
you better know your defense is up there. And I expected it to be up there. I didn't know they were changing. So that was my problem on that one. Rich was asking, guys, how'd you find the time to do all this scouting? Some of us crammed. I crammed.
We did,
But I'm
yeah.
letting you guys do all the talking. Phil usually is always on top of it, but how about
yeah.
you?
I wish I was.
I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time over like the last few weeks trying to get these in. There were still a few guys that I wasn't able to find enough good film on. No, Dominic, I didn't do that much film. Sorry, man. It just once you start getting out of like the first round guys, it's harder to find the film on a lot of those guys. So unless you're like an actual scout or you somehow have access to film, like some of these other guys that do it, they have connections and they have access to film that we don't. Because I searched high and low for some of these other guys that I thought might be like second rounders, and I wasn't able to find a lot of good film on them. Like, yeah, you can find highlights, but it's kind of tough to really judge off highlights. You're looking more for shift by shift film, or someone that does enough like shift by shift breakdowns where you can watch the shifts that they have and make your own judgments on them. So it was tough, but I put in the most work that I think I've ever put into it, and I had more free time to be able to do it this year. So I'm very happy with what I was able to give you guys. And listen, if I'm wrong about these guys, won't be the first or last time. I'm not claiming to be a professional scout. None of us are. But it's just our opinion on what we see from what we've watched. So take it at face value if you want. Use it as a baseline if you want. It's whatever you want to do with it, basically.
Yeah, it was a lot of it was a lot of late night cramming yesterday. I mean, I think we did 2 separate 3-hour shifts of just watching shift by shifts and highlight videos. So it was a lot. I know next year, since the draft is a lot deeper, I do want to start like looking at these guys much earlier so I can actually like go much more in depth. So next year I'll definitely be more on top of that. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a good draft on Friday. We'll obviously see what happens. But yeah, I obviously have to head out. I have to go to work. So I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Take it easy, Matt.
Yeah, it was not easy to cram it all in the one night. I wish that we'd spaced it out a little bit more. But honestly, if you just pick, like, if you're really interested in, learning about these prospects and everything, just like pick a day to just sit down and just grind through it. Like that just how it went down yesterday. Honestly, just decided yesterday to just sit down and watch as much as I could. And even this morning, I woke up a bit earlier and just watched film just to get deeper into the back end of the first round, get a little bit of early second round preview. So it's something you could do for sure in one day. I don't recommend it. I recommend spacing it out more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good content out there. Like Vlad is saying, there's plenty of good content creators that make scouting report videos that break it down, which help make things easier because the way that I like to do it is watch what other creators say, and then I like to do shift by write down what they're saying and then watch shift by shifts and see if I'm seeing the same thing, and maybe develop a little bit of my own opinion on these guys as well.
Yeah, because there's those guys that I have a limited opinion about this. This is my worst aspect of being an NHL pundit. But usually I get my education from listening to Phil, listening to Statboy Steven, listening to Evan, and then doing my own research. But this is why I'm a little bit more of an observer, say, on this day. When Wednesday comes around, we're going to be talking about potential players that can move up or down, teams that can move up or down. Injuries, perhaps, like Carter Bear, who has he's got the one that torn Achilles, right?
Yeah,
that could affect how people might look at him. There's going to be a lot of those questions, and sometimes you get those players as you're doing your research where you realize I'm going to stay away for X reason. Like one of the guys I could think about in past years was Hendrix Lapierre, who the
concussions.
The concussions. You're just like, no, got to stay away from him.
I honestly, I wanted him at 20. I did. I wanted him with that Schneider pick instead. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I know I said that online. So,
and then he scored opening night against the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't panned out so far, but I still think there's a player there.
Going with what Steve says right here, are we going to see Quinn Hughes being traded on draft day?
I don't know about that.
No,
I don't know if it's this
I
year.
think that's going to be a long, extensive process if they do. I don't know if they do.
I think that's a next year sort of thing. At earliest, the deadline of Vancouver's really out of it, and they know that Quinn Hughes is just going to walk in free agency when he hits it. Maybe then, but that's the earliest. I think that's more of a next offseason thing.
Yeah.
Are we going to get any replies or any hints about Connor McDavid and his future?
I don't think so.
We had a bit of it with LeBron saying like his destinations if he did walk, but I'm not listening to any of it until for me, I have to see it to believe it, sort of thing, with him hitting the open market. Like that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too far into this type of stuff right now, just because it's so far away, and I don't really think it's happening. So I'm not going to go crazy about it. I wanted to answer Rich's question here. So what I do is I take a look at all the mocks, and I look at the general of what everyone has within like the first round or so, maybe the first 30 to 40 picks, and I see who I think is going to end up going in the first round. And I did my scouting reports based on those guys. So, some of the ones like Evan had a couple that were like off the board that I didn't even have in the top 40. So, but you know what? I like that Evan did that because there's a level of intrigue and a layer of chaos to it. And that's cool because expect the unexpected with an NHL draft or any draft for that matter. Because you don't know where the hell everyone's going. You think you may have an idea, but you really don't, because all it takes is one, I was going to say one head scout can just be like, oh, this is the player that I like. Oh, Gordy Clark. Oh, Vitaly Kravtsov. He reminds me of Evgeny Kuznetsov, who just put up 30 points in the playoffs. So he goes and drafts Vitaly Kravtsov, and Vitaly Kravtsov ends up being nothing like Evgeny Kuznetsov.
And that's a great point, Phil, because recency bias. Right now, you got everybody's looking for the next Sam Bennett right now. And
that's why I brought up Ryabkin. I think that he can be that type of player, but maybe he's not. So it's interesting because some teams are going to value guys for certain things, and some teams are going to ding those players for certain things. So,
and on your point, Mark, about that with the the Sam Bennett's and the physicality, that's why I think I just really wouldn't be shocked if Brady Martin sneaks into the top 5 I really wouldn't, just because of the physicality and the recency bias there. Because GMs are just creatures of habits. They love to be like, "Yep, this is it's a copycat league. We have to follow this formula." So I don't think he should go top 5, but I could see it just because of the way GMs are.
And Evan, the number one thing that I'll point to at that is where you're going, oh, copycat league, follow the leader, was the New Jersey Devils winning the Stanley Cup. What happened in the NHL draft a week later? The New York Islanders, who had the number 1 pick and the number 1 prospect rated by the Hockey News 2 years straight, Roberto Luongo, they traded him to Florida and then drafted Rick DiPietro. So, by the way, first, you got rid of a goalie to restart the clock on a prospect. And because he could handle the stick well, the thing is, I just don't know if DiPietro would have been that great, even if his career was healthy, as Luongo was. How do you get rid of Roberto Luongo in that situation? So, Phil, go ahead, read this question.
Yeah, MYR for Life's asking if we see K'Andre Miller being traded prior to the draft, on draft day, or after the draft. That's something that could go on. I wouldn't be shocked if it's by Friday night, but at the same time, this is something that I feel like that it could go into July. I just wouldn't rush it. I would try to get the best deal possible, really play the market. If there truly are like 15 to 16 teams that are like really interested in him, play them against each other. Like, take your time. Like, there's no rush to move this guy unless they want another first round pick in this draft and they want to give this year's pick to Pittsburgh. Then I don't see another. I don't see a reason to rush things. So.
Yeah, and I could see this being a day 2 draft, the draft deal. My question then would be, Evan, do you think K'Andre Miller can fetch a better return than Mikhail Sergachev?
I'd have to look at that trade again, because honestly, I forgot what the trade was there, because I was Geeky, right? Geeky was in that deal. Yeah,
Geeky,
it was
Geeky, Moser, I believe.
Geeky, Moser, a 7th and a 2nd. I mean, I guess it depends what the Rangers want. Like, do they want more of a pick heavy return, or do they want young players in return? Because if they want mostly picks, I think they could get a first round pick for Miller, because instead of getting a second, like, the Lightning did with Sergachev, they got guys like Geeky and Moser in the deal. I think if they're looking for a pick heavy deal, you could look at like a first and a third and then maybe some late picks. But if they want some younger players, you're not going to get as good of a pick in return. It will probably be more of a second and a third with that roster player. I have zero clue what they want to do in terms of what they want in return for Miller. Like, I've heard mostly picks, but I'm not even sure. Like, I could also see a world where they put him in like more of a hockey trade where they get guys to help them with the current roster.
Lafreniere and Miller for Byram and Peterka, it just makes too much sense as a hockey trade. It just makes too much sense. Tom is saying right here, someone needs to bring a sign to MS Street in October saying that the barbecue is over. I agree with you on that one, because after all, but
yeah, that was they have no one to blame but themselves for this, and that's really it. So it's gotta, it had to come to an end, and now it's time to move on. And if Mika Zibanejad wants to be a good soldier and stay here, okay, he'll have a chance to do so. But I definitely have my concerns about him going forward. I would personally want to get rid of everyone that was involved in that, including Artemi Panarin.
I still don't find any reason to have Artemi Panarin on this team anymore, because you're not really considering resigning him at $11 million next season. He's 34 years old. Everything in his game is going to be declining. The Rangers should be trying to get rid of him now. And I keep and the thing is, I'll go back to it before. Just reading the tea leaves, Chris Drury hates this guy. So just move on. I mean, he's already pretty disinterested. Look at the Calgary game towards the end of the season. Scores the first goal of the game. What was it? 2 minutes in, maybe 2.5 minutes. And then the Rangers, I don't even think they got 15 shots on goal in that game.
He just did not want to play. Like, he just looked so disinterested after that goal in that game. I was just like, I was so pissed at him.
Yeah.
You know, and you have every right to feel betrayed, Rich. I think we all do. It's like, how do you go into this season knowing that you were that pouty over this and you couldn't put that aside and show up and play hockey? Like, and I had people telling me, "Oh, you're crazy to think that they orchestrated this from day one." Like, really? Because this is saying otherwise. This article is saying otherwise. The way that they played to start the season and the shitty hockey that they were playing and getting away with because Igor Shesterkin was bailing them out. And against those bad teams, by the way, those Detroit games, they were like playing run and gun games with Detroit. What are you doing? Detroit wasn't even good.
Yeah.
They started off so bad. And for me, I mean, the team quit on 3 different coaches in 5 seasons. They quit in the middle of a playoff series and went to the general manager because they quit on the coach in the middle of a friggin' playoff series. Like, hey, okay, if you think the coach is a doorknob or whatever insult you want to call him, and you think that he's coaching out of a Coaching for Dummies book, then win in spite of him, which you were doing at the start of that series, and then go and then have that discussion in the offseason.
Yep.
Like, they quit in the middle of that series, and you could just tell. And that game 7 was one of the worst efforts I have ever seen out of a Ranger team in my life.
5 or 7, because that was a carbon copy paste of one another. Those games, that was horrible.
Yeah. And it was clear that in game 5 that they quit. It was absolutely clear in game 5 that they quit versus the Devils.
Once the series got tied up, I knew right then and there they were done.
Right.
Game 6, it was kind of like what happened this year with the Leafs and Panthers, where it's like, yeah, the Leafs won game 6, but you knew they were losing game 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at least with the Leafs, they went to Florida and won that game. The Rangers won that game at home. So I'm not going to put as much stock into that as what the Leafs did. But the thing is, I also look at that and go, that's also Florida flexing their muscle. The Devils didn't flex their muscle. Rangers quit. The Rangers quit. Their coach was incompetent because Gerard Gallant made no adjustments. He made adjustments in game 4, just going, all right, let's just put the lines in a blender, see what happens.
And the worst part is when you hear the interviews after, like Jack Hughes in an interview that offseason, he said it, like, if they lost game 3, they knew they were done. Like, they were dead in the water at that point. But no, they had to quit in the middle of the series. Like, even if you go up 3-1 there, you respond with a better game 4 and you go up 3-1. You have them probably dead in the water there. They were not confident at all. They were saying the entire time they were playing with house money. So you should have destroyed them.
Evan, there's one other note that needs to be said in that series, and I'll constantly go back to it. Chris Kreider scored 1-0 Rangers. Final score of that game was 2-1. You know how the Devils got that goal to tie it up? Jack Hughes on the power play. Why'd they have that power play? Because Igor Shesterkin had to punch Timo Meier when he was on the ice. That is something that is not going away, folks. And Igor is going to do it. I know everybody's on me because I'm critical of Igor. Sorry. He ain't Henrik. He ain't even he ain't Henrik. That's all. Stay out of it, especially if you're the goalie.
Yeah, I'm not even going to get into that contract. It's so dumb. But it's just the whole team is just they needed to make a change. They still need to make changes. Still players that need to go. Still things that need to happen. And you know what? Hopefully, whatever toxicity is that was there, hopefully that's gone. Like, yep,
Right.
this is it. Yep.
Like
Yep.
right now, if you did the NHL's, and we're going to see it and shortly, the NHL's top 10 goaltender list, they're going to put Shesterkin on there because of the eye test and because
Name value,
it's unbelievable what he
reputation.
did. But no, you can't do it like that. And just I guess one last thing before we even go on this. Joe, the reason why we keep saying it, and Phil says it, I say it, Evan said it, Matt says it, everybody says it. It can't be the coaches. And I'm sorry. I look at Chris Drury. Yeah, sure. I got my criticisms of him too. But when he tried to fix the situation and Trouba played hardball and the players then gave this effort, I was at the Florida game in MSG and just looked at it and went, this team ain't going anywhere. You could tell Florida was just a better team. That should have been the game that the Rangers got up and played. Instead, they gave up the first 2 goals very quickly. I think it was 2-0 by the time it was 3 minutes in. Lafreniere scored, and that started to pump them up.
That was the game without Barkov and Ekblad, right?
Yes. Yes. It was 2 weeks before my wedding, so we actually had a sign made up and jerseys and stuff. Ridiculous. But it's just there just wasn't any pushback. And it can't be another coach. You can't just look at this team and go run it back out there with another coach. Because the only team that's ever that I could think of that ever succeeded in this manner was the San Jose Sharks. And they did it for 1 year, got the Stanley Cup Finals, and that was it. But
that's the thing, though.
I agree with you, but sorry, Evan.
I was just gonna say, like, that's the thing. Like, you know, they've done this multiple times now, similar to the Sharks, where instead of getting to the finals, they get far. But like first year in with a new coach, they get far, and then they're done with the coach. That's it.
It's a shot of adrenaline. That's all it is.
It's like these guys act like they've won something, but then they quit on the coach that helped them get there.
I like Joe's response right here. If the NHL could force the Oilers to trade Garrett,
I don't think the NHL forced that. I watched a lot of stuff about that, and that was more like, so that happened behind Gretzky's back, and Pocklington went and basically dealt, like, he went above Sather. He went above Sather. It was conversations were happening between 2 owners. Like, that's how diluted that whole process was. So I just, Pocklington got the death threats for it, and I get why Edmonton fans reacted. I'm not that I approve of death threats, but I get why the fans reacted the way they did in the hysteria that they acted in. And I mean, really, it just, Pocklington was bleeding out money. He was bleeding out money and couldn't afford it. And the money that he got from the trade basically helped keep the Oilers alive for a while. So, they knew they couldn't afford to pay him. And it's basically what it came down to. It wasn't the NHL forcing it. It was just Pocklington just did not have the money.
And Phil, don't forget the other side of that. You had Bruce McNall, who was desperate to make a splash with the LA Kings. And it was a perfect trade for the NHL, for Wayne Gretzky, for his family, because Janet Jones was still acting and a prominent actress at the time. And it exploded the game. It was one of the greatest moments in NHL history. Even though it was also one of the saddest moments, because, and by the way, that's when you want to see an emotional press conference from a player like that after everything Wayne Gretzky accomplished, and crying and saying, "I promised Mess I wouldn't do this." they had the documentary, The Boys on the Bus. I don't know if you guys ever saw that in the NHL.
I've seen that a couple of times.
And Gretzky has said numerous times, this is closer than any team ever could be. They still moved on. They still, and they had and Phil, I gotta just remember if I'm right on this one. Didn't they lose to the Kings next year, the Oilers?
Yeah, and in 88, 89, yes, they did. That was Bernie Nichols' like big 70-goal season, 70-goal, 150-point season that year.
Yeah, had nothing to do with playing Wayne Gretzky. And then the year after that, the Oilers moved on from there. That was the greatest player ever traded and the captain with the most amount of points in his career. It wasn't Barclay Goodrow. I'm not saying we all haven't had teammates, but it makes me shake my head the entire time. Joe, to answer your question, we'll probably find out 48 hours.
We talked about this before. Yeah, no official word yet. Before
the draft. All right, guys, we've been going at this all day. We're going to play the music to get us out of here. We have our weekly show. Evan, when's the next time you're going on? Are you going on for the draft the next time or something?
Yeah, probably the draft, barring anything breaking. Like if Miller gets traded between now and then I'll go live or just any other news. But outside of that, no. I thought I was gonna do a stream potentially for Rempe's extension, but I don't know how I could milk a live stream out of a Matt Rempe extension. Then I was like, I'll just throw into another live stream.
As much as I like Matt Rempe, and I really do, the fact that we had fans that were panicking whether or not he was going to get offer sheeted was absolutely terrifying. And to go further with our coverage this week, we got our weekly show Wednesday. Check on that in the afternoon. We're going to be on at 1:00 again, and we're going to have another show this week. Friday afternoon, we're going to have Thomas Hickey of the New York Islanders on to talk about them, as well as the draft coverage, draft night. We have the man downstairs. That's not downstairs, but down below me right now. Not saying you're ever below me, Evan, either. So,
breaking news, not massive news, but breaking. New York Rangers signed Adam Edstrom to a 2-year contract extension per Molly Walker.
Well, there you go, on cue. As we talked about,
right?
One. Hopefully that's not going to break the bank either. I don't think it will, but
no.
I just don't want it to be north of like $1 million. I doubt it will because of the injury he had last year.
Oh, Johnny Lazarus actually had it before her.
I know exactly when Keandre Miller is going to get
AAV. Sorry to cut you off there, but
no, I know exactly when Keandre Miller is going to get traded, Evan. It's going to be Thursday, probably at about 9:30, maybe even 10 o'clock, because that'll happen probably when I'm on hole 3 playing golf, and I'll get several text messages from Anthony saying, "Why aren't you going live? Why aren't you going live?" So it's the way my life works. It's the chaos that goes into this. But like I said, guys, we have a ton of things we're doing this week, and don't forget, Free Agent Frenzy is 8 days away.
Luka, sorry to cut you off again, but the deal's 2 years, $975K. So below $1 million, steal the deal.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if I could say steal, but it's a nice deal. It's appropriate for what he is so far. I mean,
well, you also noticed there was a big difference with the Rangers when he went down.
Yeah, no, and listen, I think there's room for growth, but he hasn't done a whole lot at this level yet. I mean, he's looked impressive, but I mean, for what he's given you, I mean, and you got to remember, like, I know people don't look at counting stats and oh, your counting stats are yada yada yada, but they do determine what you get paid. There are a determining factor. So, he has 11 career points in 62 career games, 7 goals. He had 5 in this year with 9 points in 51 games. I mean, he's establishing himself as a young fourth line forward, and it's a nice deal for him. It's barely, again, it's $975K for Edstrom.
Yeah, same exact deal as Matt Rempe. Both are Both are solid deals. The only one thing with the Rempe one I don't love is like I'm tired of dealing with the theatrics of him just being in the lineup just for the sake of him throwing his body into the glass. But you know, contract-wise, it's like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And just before we sign off, a quick reminder: if you want recaps of the New York Mets in post-game streams, there's another channel right there with Ranger Central.
They're
Make sure
great
you're
time to
following
talk
him.
about right now.
Well, there's I can sum up the last 8 games. They're sucking high wind, so it's a good thing they sent down Alvarez now. Hit a home run Saturday night. Yeah, going down, kid. So I don't know which one's a bigger disaster, but we're gonna have all the news, actually one more quick question for you boys. Rapid fire. Phil, do the Islanders trade back into the top 10 to go get Higgins?
No.
Evan.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's see if that happens Friday night, and Friday is going to be really interesting, guys. Stay tuned for all the news that's going to be coming, information, obviously, and we got the free agent frenzy next week. So thank you all very much, and we will talk to you soon.